Chapter 328. By then the news of Wang Quan's broken limbs and Su Yohang's injuries had already reached the head of the delegation from Singapore, the mayor of Zhonghai Yi Weihao. Meanwhile, Yi Weihao's room was ablaze with lights. He was in the middle of a discussion with a few tycoons. Bullshit. Bullshit. Yi Weihao slammed the table and glared at Manager Hu. You are the head steward of the delegation. How could you let them drink in a bar? Why did you let them fight? Are you a useless person? Director Hu tilted his head and his head was about to be stuffed into his crotch. He felt wronged as well. Yi Haochen liked to flirt with girls. You know that. He is your son, the crown prince of Zhonghai. How can I control him? Yi Weihao's hands trembled as he thought about it. This is the first time a delegation has been beaten up since the founding of the People's Republic of China. You guys are creating a new world. How glorious. Next to them, an entrepreneur representative in the electronics industry couldn't stand it anymore and frowned. He frowned and said, Mayor Yi, this is not Manager Hu's fault. That Jiang guy was too ruthless. He broke Wang Quan's limbs without warning. We didn't even have time to react. Su Yuhang might be good at fighting, but he was no match for his opponent. Besides, he is the Master Kong of Jin City. Who would dare to stop him? Wait a minute, what Master Kong? It was so noisy outside that even Yi Cheetah, who had already fallen asleep, was alarmed. He walked out of the room next door and asked. Old man, he is the Master Kong who defeated the Nye family and the other two families in Jin City. The boss of the electronics industry said in a deep voice. Rumor has it that this person is a tycoon of Jinling. Not only were the Nye Qin and Sun families beaten to a pulp in the financial war, but they were also wiped out. Oh, the Master Kong of Jin City. No wonder. As soon as these words came out, some of the high-ranking officials and rich people present were shocked and couldn't believe it. Oh, the Jiang family of the Yawang group. After all, Yi Cheetah was in the economic field. He immediately reacted and waved his hand. I know about the financial war. Even Fang Zhanbo was defeated by the Medicine King group. But I heard that the one behind it was Qin Zhenming from Wall Street. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Jiang family is capable. In addition, what annihilation? That's even more nonsense. It's a false rumor. Is there no law in this world of peace? Father, what should we do? Yi Weihao asked with a frown as he had no experience in dealing with such a thorny issue. Singapore is a lawful society. How can he run away? Just call the police and arrest him. Yi Cheetah was very calm and said indifferently. He had been through many ups and downs throughout his life. In the end, he was given the title of Imperial Preceptor. An extremely important position. What kind of situation had he not seen? He had once stayed in a cowshed, been criticized, and had also attended a meeting with Deng Gong. He had even been warmly received by the chief, so he had seen all kinds of powerful people. He was just a hedonistic young master from Jinling. Why would he care about him? Yi Cheetah's words hit the nail on the head. Everyone nodded in agreement. Old man Yi was the best. No matter how arrogant Jiang Tian was, it was only a small plot of land in Jinling City. Even in Zhonghai it was useless, let alone in other countries. But now, the Zhonghai political and business delegation was a distinguished guest of Singapore. How could the Singapore police not treat this matter with caution and seriousness? We have a lot of friends here in Singapore. Yi Cheetah said lightly. Take the owner of this hotel, Mr. Hilton, as an example. He invited me to cut the ribbon when he opened a branch in Zhonghai. Yes. No matter how powerful that Master Kong is, he is nothing compared to the old man Yi. That's right. This time with Elder Yi in charge, he's dead for sure. Everyone immediately flattered, and their panicked minds also calmed down. Mr. Yi, everyone, you have been blacklisted by our hotel. Please leave. Yi Cheetah didn't think much of it. Just as he was about to go to bed, an executive of the hotel walked up to him and said expressionlessly. What? You want to kick us out? Are you kidding me? We are the visitors from Zhonghai. How dare you kick us out? This is the mayor of Zhonghai. This is the old man Yi. Many tycoons and government officials couldn't believe what they were hearing. Then their faces turned green with anger. Director Hu in particular jumped 3 feet high and said angrily, How can you treat a guest like this? Do you know who we are? I am going to file a formal complaint against you to the embassy and file an international lawsuit to defend our rights. The hotel executive wore a smile on his face, but there were needles hidden in his words. I know the identity of everyone present here. The reason why everyone here is blacklisted is because your delegation gathered in our hotel and injured people. You're even suspected of murder. Of course, we welcome you to use the law to defend your rights. Everyone was speechless. This was serious. However, it was Chinese New Year's Eve. There were many tourists in Wuxia. All the hotels were fully booked. Where were they going to book a hotel at this hour? Were they going to sleep on the streets? Yichida's face darkened. He felt a little embarrassed. He was just bragging about his friendship with the Hilton Hotel a moment ago. Then he was kicked out. As for whether or not the visitors were intentional, that is not up to you to decide. He chuckled and said, "Call your general manager here. Or ask Mr. Hilton to talk to me. Tell him that I am Yichida, an old friend of his from Wuxia University." "I'm sorry, Mr. Yi." This order was also given by Ms. Paris Hilton. "Please cooperate with us. Don't make things difficult for me," the executive said with a sour face. Yichida was so angry that he almost fainted. He had been to the White House, but now he was being kicked out of the Hilton Hotel. It was humiliating. "Miss Paris only gave me 3 minutes. She doesn't want to see you in the hotel room." The executive raised his wrist and looked at his Vacheron Constantin watch. He smiled bitterly and said, "Then I have no choice but to enforce the order." With a gentle wave of his hand, a dozen bodyguards swarmed in and dragged them outside. "Don't touch me. We can walk on our own." Yichida was so angry that his face was ashen. His whole body was trembling. He put his hands behind his back and walked out of the door. "Why can't we stay here? We already paid in advance. We are beating up Jiang Tian. He is from Wuxia. What does it have to do with you? Mind your own business." A few rich and powerful officials were still reluctant and wanted to argue. Yi Weihao suppressed his anger and gritted his teeth. Go, go, go. Is this the only hotel in Singapore?" He reprimanded through gritted teeth. "If this place doesn't want us, there will be other places for us." He supported Yichida and walked out of the door. The rich and powerful officials could only carry their luggage and follow with dejected faces. "Go. Remember, you are on our blacklist. Our hotel does not welcome you." Many of the hotel staff waved their hands to chase them away as if they were annoying flies. "My medicine bottle." Yichida was so angry that he felt dizzy. He clutched his chest in pain and almost had a heart attack. He was an extremely powerful official and was known as the Imperial Preceptor. He had great influence in Wuxia's economic field. His words and actions could affect national policies and the fate of industries. In the past, no matter where he went, the feudal officials and Forbes tycoons treated him with respect as if he was their teacher. But today in the small Singapore, he was chased away like a stray dog. It was really too infuriating. "Grandpa, Dad, what's wrong with you?" Yi Haochen walked over and asked in surprise when he saw a group of people walking out of the hotel. "You did it and now you're being chased out," Yi Weihao said angrily. "It's not my fault. They started it. I just wanted to have a drink with my old classmate," Yi Haochen explained bitterly. "Xiaohu, hurry up and book a hotel. Look at the time. We still have a meeting tomorrow," Yi Weihao urged impatiently. He couldn't be bothered with these details. "I'm calling now." "Don't worry, Mayor Yi." Secretary, who was sweating profusely. He smiled pitifully. A group of people gathered at the fountain square in front of the hotel. They looked like stray dogs. Against the backdrop of the gorgeous fireworks, they looked even more desolate. The hotel's security guard came over and warned them seriously, "Gentlemen, please walk outside. This is still our hotel's private property." His gaze was as if he was looking at a third-world refugee. Ichida was so angry that he almost fainted. Secretary, who made a round of phone calls but couldn't find a single room. After all, tourism in Singapore was very popular around the Chinese New Year. Previously, they had rejected the Singapore government's offer of an official hotel. It was not appropriate to contact the Singapore government at this time. It was already past midnight. That scene was truly one where one could neither go up nor down. It was truly an awkward situation. They didn't want to stay in hotels that were too shabby. In the end, a boss had a villa in Singapore with dozens of rooms. Everyone decided to stay there. Looks like we still have to work hard. The road to recovery is long and arduous. The hotel didn't provide a shuttle car. Ichida sat in the smelly taxi and lamented. This reminds me of the mocking eyes of the Russians when I was studying at Moscow State University. Yi Haochen didn't sleep the whole night. He kept asking for information about Jiang Tian through the intelligence network. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Su Jie reported that Wang Quan's family had arrived. After all, Yi Haochen was the cause of this incident. He quickly borrowed a car from the tycoon and drove to St. Mary Hospital. Intensive Care Unit. Wang Quan's father, the #1 lawyer in Zhonghai, Wang Tianhe, stood in the corridor and looked at Wang Quan in the ward. On the bench next to him, Wang Quan's mother and girlfriend were sobbing uncontrollably. Wang Quan's grandfather, Wang Pingjiang's face was ashen. He sighed. They spent a lot of money to charter a plane to fly here. After all, Wang Quan was seriously injured. During the operation, he almost died on the operating table. Tianhe, the doctor, said, Wang Quan's life can be saved, but he can only spend the rest of his life in a hospital bed. That brat surnamed Jiang was too ruthless. That's simply inhumane and lawless. Wang Quan's mother cried bitterly as she spoke. Wang Tianhe didn't say anything for a long time. His face was so gloomy that it felt like a storm was coming. Chapter 329. Yi Haochen said with a pained face, Uncle Wang, this is all because of me. The Yi family will not stand by and do nothing. Wang Tianhe was indeed the #1 lawyer in Zhonghai. Even when his son was beaten up, he did not lose his composure. He patted Yi Haochen's shoulder and said, Little Yi, it's not your fault. That Jiang guy is too arrogant. He actually beat my only son so badly. It seems that he wants to fight to the death with our Wang family. Yi Haochen nodded and said, My dad has already sent a message to Secretary Fan of Su Province. I think Secretary Fan will not let the Jiang family off so easily. Oh, even Brother Wei Hao has been alerted. That's good. Wang Tianhe said with a hint of joy. Yi Wei Hao was a high-ranking official. His words carried a lot of weight. Even Secretary Fan of Su Province had to give him face. This time I will make sure he dies without a burial place. Wang Tianhe said with a face full of hatred. At the side, Wang Quan's grandfather, Wang Pingjiang, waved his hand and said, Wei Hao used his connections on his side, but we can't just let it go. Let Yi Baosher do it. Right, Yi Baosher. When Yi Baosher was mentioned, Wang Tianhe's face lit up. When I was studying at Harvard's Kennedy School of Political Science, he was a visiting scholar there. We have always been good friends. He is now the #1 lawyer in Singapore. Even the Singapore Police Department has hired him as their legal consultant. Yes, Xiao Yi came to Wuxia to handle some international cases involving Singapore. I have also helped him. Wang Pingjiang nodded. Like a confident Mr. Zhuge, he said coldly, I heard that Mr. Jiang is very popular in Jinling, but this is Singapore. No matter how powerful he is, he won't be able to show off his skills here. This time he has met the King of Hell. Yi Haochen's face darkened as he walked out of the ICU. Secretary Fan and his father Yi Wei Hao were not in the same faction, but in order to kill Jiang Tian, his father had actually asked for Secretary Fan's help. After all, the favor of a feudal official was not something that could be easily used. However, he had heard that even Secretary Yu of the Su Province's Political and Legal Affairs Committee was very close to the Jiang family. Now in the entire Su Province, only Secretary Fan could suppress the Jiang family. No matter how high the price was, he could only beg him. Right, where's Su Yuhang? Is he all right? Yi Haochen turned to look at Su Jie. Su Yuhang was examined. He's fine, but his father seemed to have scolded him. He said something about being the martial arts consultant of the Battle Dragon clan and the #1 grandmaster on the divine list. Su Yuhang was also taken away by him. I don't know if he'll go back to the mainland, Su Jie hurriedly reported. What do you mean? Why didn't you find out, stop him and report to me? Yi Haochen glared at Su Jie. Su Jie was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat. She forced a wry smile and said, He left in a hurry. I didn't have time to ask or report to you before he left with his family. Oh, then forget about it. Yi Haochen shook his head gently. Even without Su Yohang's presence, the officials of Singapore were enough to deal with Jiang Tian. He seemed to have said that he was going to play on the Princess Jenny tonight, but he didn't know that it was also his turf. There were also important officials of the Singapore government and many tycoons of Zhonghai attending the party. Even the tycoon of Jiangxia province Yi Wudao was coming. When the time came, that place would be his turf. No matter how powerful Zhang Tian was, there was no way he could turn the tables. Zhang Tian and Qing'er spent the night in bed and woke up at noon the next day. Accompanied by the Hilton sisters, they went to a few famous attractions in Singapore and bought some fun things for Jiang Wan. On the morning of the third day, Zhang Tian taught Qing'er the sonic attack of the 9 phoenix cries while playing the white ape-bone zither. In fact, the sonic attack was not a top-tier skill. However, Zhang Tian knew that Qing'er loved to play the zither, so he taught her a thing or two. However, Qing'er's ability to learn the sonic attack was terrifying. After she played the zither, her sonic attack was extraordinarily powerful. Mr. Zhang. While the two were playing the zither, a knock came from the door. You are. Zhang Tian opened the door and saw an unfamiliar middle-aged man in his 30s standing outside the door. He couldn't help but frown. Oh, I am He Jun-yi from the He family of Singapore. Please forgive me for my sudden visit. The middle-aged man was dressed in luxurious clothes and had a powerful aura around him. He family. Who is Mr. He Xianxia to you? Zhang Tian seemed to have realized something and asked softly. So Mr. Zhang has heard of my father. That's great. He Jun-yi was elegant and graceful. He was delighted when he heard Zhang Tian's words. I have heard of Mr. Zhang's Medicine King group. My He family has always wanted to cooperate with Mr. Zhang to act as the agent for these few products. A trace of excitement could be seen on his face as he said, Mr. Zhang, you should know that our He family is one of the top 4 families in Singapore. The He family's Baoshan Hall is famous in Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and even the entire Southeast Asia. If our He Baoshan Hall acts as the agent for your company's products, you will definitely be able to sell them all over Southeast Asia. Oh, I see. Zhang Tian smiled. He Jun-yi's eyes were burning with greed. He smiled eerily and said, Besides, Mr. Zhang, the prices of your medicines are too low. I think we should use hunger marketing to sell them in limited quantities and find celebrities to endorse them. We can make them into luxury brands like Louis Vuitton. By then we can expect to make tens of billions of profits a year. By then we will split the profits 30% and 70%. What do you think? Just contact the Medicine King group. I don't care about this. Zhang Tian nodded disinterestedly and was about to close the door. He Xiao had attended the Grand Preceptor's coronation ceremony a few days ago. He kowtowed to Zhang Tian as if he was an idol. However, He Xiao only brought 3 of his sons with him. He didn't bring He Junyi with him. It seemed that He Junyi was not even qualified to meet the Grand Preceptor. If the Medicine King group wanted to cooperate with the He family, they only needed Yi Ziwei to show up and He Xiao would have to greet them personally. How could it be He Junyi's turn to talk to Zhang Tian? How could he have such qualifications? Seeing that Zhang Tian wouldn't even let him in, He Junyi's smile turned bitter. His eyes turned cold as he said in a strange tone, Mr. Zhang, do you know that you are in big trouble now? I have to save you. What trouble? Zhang Tian looked at him curiously. You have offended Yi Haochen of Zhonghai. He has gathered all kinds of forces to bring you to justice. He Junyi lit up a cigarette with a doping lighter and smiled maliciously. Yi Haochen and I have a good relationship. If you agree to cooperate, I'll help you mediate and guarantee that you'll leave Singapore safely. What if I don't cooperate? Zhang Tian asked calmly. Then I can't help you. He Junyi shrugged. He decided to scare Zhang Tian. I will even stand on Yi Haochen's side. Zhang Tian sneered as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He said coldly, He Junyi, who do you think you are? How dare you talk about cooperation? You want to split the profits with me? Even your father doesn't dare to talk to me like that. What did you say? He Junyi was stunned. He couldn't believe it. He had heard that Zhang Tian was arrogant, but he didn't expect him to be this arrogant. As the saying goes, a strong dragon can't defeat a local snake. Moreover, the Jiang family's assets were comparable to the He family's. You dare to threaten me? Do you know that I can remove the He family's name from Singapore with one word? Get lost. Zhang Tian's face was full of contempt. He slammed the door. The lower edge of the door was stuck on He Junyi's ankle. He grimaced in pain. I gave you face, but you don't want it. You're courting death. He Junyi stood there in disbelief. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. Although He Junyi was the son of the fourth madam, he was still He Zhongxiao's flesh and blood. He was the director and vice president of many listed companies. But Jiang Tian, a country bumpkin from the mainland, didn't give him face. Since you don't give me face, then don't blame me for turning hostile. I will let you know the consequences of offending me, He Junyi. He Junyi clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His nails dug into his palms as he smiled maliciously. Idiot, which agent doesn't take 10% of the profits? Even so, in order to compete for the agency rights, they still fight with each other. After returning to his room, Jiang Tian angrily ridiculed. This He Junyi was really too greedy. Moreover, he was too arrogant to dare to threaten him. If it weren't for the fact that He Zhongxiao was a kind person, he would have slapped him to death. Hubby, what's wrong? Why are you so angry? Qing'er's jade-like fingers played the zither, and a string of tinkling music was heard. The melodious music was like the bright moon shining in the pine forest. It was also like clear spring water flowing on clean stones. Jiang Tian's heart was suddenly clear and all his worries disappeared. Nothing continued to play the zither. It's so nice. Jiang Tian sat down next to Qing'er and said with a smile. When night fell, Jiang Tian and his wife had dinner. They walked out of the Hilton Hotel and went to the beach with Jiang Weiner. Here, this is a gift for you. Do you like it? It's going to be the Shuaqing Queen soon. Jiang Tian said with a smile as he pointed at the Princess Jenny cruise ship that was docked at Binhai Bay. It's so beautiful. Hubby, you're the best. Qing'er held Jiang Tian's hand and smiled. Wow, what a big ship. Jiang Weiner's eyes were wide open. He was very excited. Let's board the ship. Jiang Tian said with a smile. At this time, Paris Hilton smiled and said, Mr. Jiang, there's one more thing I want to report to you. Speak. Jiang Tian said calmly. The Zhonghai government and company representatives are also on this cruise ship today. They are negotiating with the Singapore government about the establishment of the free trade zone. Paris Hilton smiled and said. The Singapore government booked this cruise ship 3 months ago. I really couldn't reject it at the last minute. They also want to hold a celebratory dinner tonight. However, if Master Kong doesn't want to see them, I can chase them off even if they have to pay some compensation for breaching the contract. Oh, I didn't know about this before, Jiang Tian smiled and said, but it's okay. I want to meet them anyway. A speedboat came. Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing held Jiang Weiner's hand and boarded the yacht and then the cruise ship. Little did they know that Yi Haochen and the others had been waiting for them for a long time. A big battle was about to break out. Chapter 330. After 2 days of arduous negotiations, the establishment of a free trade zone between Zhonghai and Singapore had been finalized. Many of the officials and elites of the business world felt as if they had run a marathon. They felt both tired and relaxed. Meanwhile, in the banquet hall of the cruise ship, many officials and tycoons were drinking and chatting merrily. If the free trade zone is built successfully, Mayor Yi will be one of the top contributors. He will be noticed by the central government and be promoted to the position of the #1 official of Zhonghai. Yeah, after the establishment of Zhonghai Free Trade Zone, more countries and regions will join us. It will push the economy of Zhonghai to a new height. Many tycoons and government officials surrounded Yi Haochen like stars around the moon. Their faces were plastered with flattering smiles. This is a pioneering work. Now Mayor Yi is not even 50 years old. He can be said to be young and vigorous. With such outstanding achievements and the support of the old Lord Yi, he will become the secretary of the central government in 5 years. That will be a different story. Everyone displayed their own unique skills and fancy flattery flew into the sky. Colorful flattery surged like a tide. As the crown prince of Zhonghai, Yi Haochen was already a very powerful man. Even the richest people on the Forbes list treated him with respect. At this moment, the way they looked at Yi Haochen was different. If Yi Weihao could become the secretary of the central government, he would be able to join the central government. That meant that he would be able to climb to the top of the pyramid of power in Wuxia. Everyone felt as if they were witnessing the rise of a new political family. Yi Haochen, on the other hand, was like a golden egg that could transform into a divine dragon of the 9th heaven. This matter isn't set in stone yet. Yi Haochen suppressed his smugness and said with a smile. I had a meeting with Prime Minister Li Xianlong this morning. He said that we need the approval of the new Grand Preceptor of Singapore. Grand Preceptor? What the hell is that? Why does it sound like a feudal society? Yeah, isn't Singapore a modern country with a legal system? Why does the Grand Preceptor have the final say? Yeah, this is too unbelievable. Many tycoons were perplexed. He's probably a feng shui master. Yi Haochen said lightly. I have worked in Singapore for many years and I know that Singapore's obsession with feng shui has reached an unimaginable level. Do you know about the Suntec City complex? We know. Everyone agreed and listened attentively. Yi Haochen held a glass full of champagne, elegantly speaking. When the place first opened for business, the businesses there were dismal. Later, under the guidance of the state preceptor Master Red Boat, a circular fountain was built that sprayed inward. It is known as the Fountain of Wealth. In Cantonese, there's a meaning of water is money. Spurting inward means keeping the goodies within the family. Since then, the sales of the Suntec City building complex have been smooth sailing, and the merchants have made a fortune. It has now become the most prosperous commercial complex in Singapore. Young Master Yi is indeed knowledgeable, as expected of someone who studied at Singapore National University. Everyone felt incredulous, but they still nodded. A tycoon smiled and added, "There's one more thing. In early 1997, a new subway opened in Singapore. Due to the Asian financial crisis, the economy took a nosedive. At that time, Prime Minister Lee Kuan-yew was so anxious that he asked the state preceptor for help. The state preceptor placed the feng shui diagram in front of Lee Kuan-yew and said that feng shui dragon veins are like this. Now that you have opened a subway, you have forcefully broken the dragon veins. My solution is that every Singaporean citizen must wear a small 8 trigrams." Lee Kuan-yew agreed and immediately carried out the instructions. That's how the current Singapore 1 yuan coin came into existence. He smiled and took out a coin. It really is an imitation of the 8 trigrams. Yes, the whole thing is round, but the hollow edges are in the shape of the 8 trigrams. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. Yi Haochen smiled and commented, "I don't know if it was the Asian financial crisis that caused the state preceptor's miracle, or if it was the state preceptor's miracle that dispelled the financial crisis. Either way, Singapore's economy recovered and started to prosper." His face was solemn as he said, "In short, the state preceptor is a highly respected figure in Singapore. He is also known as the King of Singapore. In the 1980s, it was the Venerable Master Red Boat. In the 1990s, it was Wang Chongyan from the Chinese Society of Singapore. Now it's the legendary state preceptor Jiang." As everyone chatted, they were all inquiring about this godlike imperial preceptor Jiang. Someone asked, "I wonder if the arrogant and despotic Grandmaster Jiang from 2 nights ago dares to come today?" Yi Haochen's eyes flashed with disdain. He took a sip of red wine and didn't reply. "Yeah, didn't he say that he was coming today?" A tycoon holding a folding fan, Boss Fu, sneered. "Don't scare him to death. Many political figures are coming today. There are police and even military guards. He should surrender now that he is here." Boss Zhang, who was wearing a jade bracelet at the side, sneered. "I bet he would have run back to Wuxia already." A socialite from Zhonghai sneered. "Do you think he can run back to Wuxia? If he offended young Master Yi, the leaders of Su province would not let him off the hook." Boss Fu, who was holding a folding fan, said disdainfully. Everyone nodded. Yi Weihao had made it into a free trade zone. How brilliant of a political achievement was that? Zhonghai was the second largest city in Wuxia. It was almost certain that he would become the secretary of Zhonghai. "Let's drink. He is just a spoiled brat. Take your time, I am going to the banquet hall to keep my father company." Yi Haochen toasted everyone and then walked into the banquet hall in high spirits. "Mr. Jiang Tian and Ms. Zhao Xueching of Jin City have arrived." Clang, clang, clang. When Jiang Tian appeared on the deck of the cruise ship, a commotion broke out. Many people looked at the boarding gate in disbelief. Everyone's faces were filled with shock, disbelief, ridicule, curiosity, and schadenfreude. There were all kinds of expressions. They had never heard of Jiang Tian's name before. However, after the incident at the Hilton Hotel, everyone in Zhonghai knew about the Master Kong of Jin City. So he is the Master Kong of Jin City? He's so young. I heard that he dominated Lingnan and defeated the 3 most powerful families in Jin City. That's impossible. Not only that, I also heard that the Tang family of Linzhou is very close to him. Everyone's attention was on Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing. Jiang Tian had left many legends in Jin City. He used to be a spoiled brat who was mentally unstable, but he rose to power and became the leader of the underworld in Jiangbei. He defeated the Wei family and the Mo family in Lingnan and shocked many powerful families. Then he returned to Jin City and defeated the 3 most powerful families in Jin City. All along the way he was simply advancing triumphantly with irresistible force. His speed was like a rocket and he was practically invincible. There were many rumors about him. Some said that he was the illegitimate son of a boss in the central government, or that he was adopted by a mysterious sorcerer. Although many people didn't believe it, these rumors were very convincing and many people believed it. Humph, he's just average. I don't care if you believe it or not, but I don't believe it. Boss Fu looked at Jiang Tian, slapped the folding fan in his hand and shook his head. Boss Fu, if it weren't for him, the Nie family wouldn't have fallen. Nie Zhonghai was burned to death. Nie Zhonghai had dominated Jin City for many years. Even Secretary Fan and Secretary Yu couldn't defeat him. Boss Zhang twirled the jade bracelet in his hand and said with a smile. Heh. Boss Zhang, you said it yourself. Even Secretary Fan and Secretary Yu couldn't defeat Nie Zhonghai. How could he? Boss Fu raised his eyebrows. Well. Boss Zhang was speechless. Yes, Secretary Fan and Secretary Yu were both high-ranking officials. However, Nie Zhonghai and the other 2 families had dominated Jin City for decades. Even these high-ranking officials couldn't do anything about it, let alone this young man in front of him who looked like he was in his early 20s. I want to say that it was just a coincidence. Nie Zhonghai was too arrogant. The higher-ups had their eyes on him for a long time. Since the Jiang family and the Nie family had a grudge against each other, the officials pushed the Jiang family out. Boss Fu waved the folding fan in his hand as if he was Zhuge Kongming. What do you want to eat? Teppanyaki squid. Eat whatever you want today, you greedy little cat. Jiang Tian pulled a chair over and sat down. He held Jiang Waner in his arms and fed her the grilled squid on the grill. Cousin, it's delicious. Jiang Waner beamed with joy. Her mouth was greasy. At this time, Director Hu heard the news and came over. He put on a professional posture and frowned. Mr. Jiang, right? I'm sorry, but this is the celebration party of the Zhonghai delegation. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. Please leave. Who are you? Jiang Tian looked at him curiously. Me. I am the director of the office of Zhonghai City. I am also the personal secretary of Mayor Yi Weihao. I am also the chief steward of the delegation. Director Hu had an arrogant look on his face. He cast a sidelong glance at Jiang Tian as if he was looking at a beggar. Because Jiang Tian had beaten up the members of the visiting group, Yi Weihao was enraged and scolded him. Now that he had seen the culprit, how could he still hold it in? What a big shot. You scared the hell out of me. Jiang Tian picked up the grilled tuna again, stuffed it into Jiang Waner's mouth, and sneered without raising his head. Actually, you're nothing more than a horse guard who leads a horse for someone else. A clown who carries a sedan chair and plays the trumpet. You're just a small fry. How dare you act so arrogantly in front of me? Dog slave, you're simply courting death. Jiang Tian, who do you think you are? Your father Jiang Zhixing was just a divisional official a year ago. These words were too harsh. Even though Director Hu had experienced decades of ups and downs in the officialdom, he was about to explode with anger at this moment. He was so angry that his lips were trembling. His body was shaking uncontrollably. Then he ground his teeth and said with disdain and mockery, "When I went to Jinling on a business trip, your father served me wine, lit cigarettes and gave me gifts. It was as if he was meeting his own grandfather." He wanted to return the humiliation brought by Jiang Tian 100-fold. He even helped me open the car door. I don't know who is the slave and who is the clown. What? Now he has just been promoted to the office level and he is only at the peace level. How dare you? Haha, you are courting death. Hearing this, Jiang Tian's face suddenly became gloomy. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 331. Jiang Tian was truly enraged. It was fine for others to humiliate him, but Jiang Tian would never allow anyone to humiliate his father. Scram. Jiang Tian did not waste his breath at all. and directly delivered a big slap over. Ah! Amidst the blood-curdling screams, Director whose mouth was full of blood. He flew out like a dead dog, twitching all over and unable to get up for a long time. Everyone's body quivered and they were shocked silly. Too arrogant, too arrogant. He actually dared to slap Director whose face in public. This was too arrogant and domineering. How dare you hit me? Director who got up and covered his swollen face. He was horrified and looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. If it wasn't for the fact that we're both descendants of Yan Huang and met in another country, you'd already be dead. Jiang Tian took the wet towel handed over by Qing'e, as if hitting him would dirty his own hand. He carefully and slowly wiped the non-existent stain on his hand, and said with an indifferent expression, "What should we do? Don't call the guards. They've all been injured by him and haven't been discharged yet. Call the police. The police won't be here anytime soon. It's best to call the guards on the cruise ship." Just as everyone was at their wits' end, a voice announced, "Miss Paris has arrived." Director who wiped the blood off his lips and walked over angrily. "Miss Paris, this Jiang guy started the fight today. Also, this cruise ship is rented by the Singapore government. What right does he have to come up here and beat people up? Where are your security guards?" he asked. "Arrest him immediately." Everyone knew that the visiting group was on the Hilton Hotel's blacklist. However, this Princess Jenny was not a property of the Hilton Hotel. They still had the right to use it. Moreover, they were guests invited by the Singapore government. How could Paris dare to offend them? Get out. Arrogant, despotic and vulgar. What a barbarian. How dare you beat people up in such a high-class place like the Princess Jenny? You have no manners. Seeing that Paris had arrived, the rich and powerful officials seemed to have found someone to rely on. They all shouted, "Mr. Hu, I'm sorry, but this cruise ship has become Madame Zhang's private property since 3 days ago." The moment Paris opened her mouth, she suppressed all the boiling voices. Private property? Everyone was dumbfounded. It was as if they had been viciously slapped a few times. They were completely dumbfounded. Like a high and mighty princess, Paris looked down at the crowd and smiled faintly. "The Singapore government and you are just his tenants. If Mr. Jiang is willing to pay a few $100,000 new dollars, he can kick you out right now." Gee. Instantly everyone was dumbfounded. They were like ducks that had been choked by an invisible hand, and they were flabbergasted yet unable to utter a single word. What? This cruise ship is probably worth at least 1 billion Wuxia dollars. Jiang Tian actually bought it. Everyone present was a wealthy and high-ranking official. They knew the true value of this cruise ship and couldn't help but exclaim. After taking the contract from Iris, Jiang Tian passed it to Zhou Xian and smiled. "King, keep it well. This is the ownership certificate. Do you like it?" "Ha, it's fine if it's under your name. Why did you have to put it under my name?" Zhou Xian scolded Jiang Tian, but her face was filled with joy. "Birthday present? That's too extravagant." Boss Fu was dumbfounded. He gripped his folding fan so tightly that his knuckles turned white. They were all people with a net worth of billions, but normally they would grit their teeth and make the decision to spend tens of millions on a cruise ship. But Jiang Tian gave away a cruise ship worth 1 billion just like that. This wasn't a model, it was the real deal. He really didn't care about money. What a country bumpkin. So what if he has some filthy money? Nouveau riche. In the banquet hall, Yi Haochen's face suddenly changed. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass window, his face turned green and white. In the end, he could only curse resentfully. At that moment he felt really uncomfortable. He couldn't help but recall how he tried to bribe Zhou Xian with a villa worth less than 10 million, but Zhou Xian retorted. At that time he thought that his villa with a sea view worth tens of millions was extravagant enough to move Zhou Xian. But what about Jiang Tian? He gave him a cruise ship that was worth 1 billion Wuxia dollars. Compared to Jiang Tian's wealth, he was probably like a beggar in Zhou Xian's eyes. His smug look made him look like a clown. What kind of luck did Zhou Xian have to marry such a good husband? Next to her, Su Jia was also envious and shocked. She muttered in a low voice, dumbfounded. Before this, she had always thought that Zhou Xian was born in a miserable family and married poorly. On the other hand, she married a rich second-generation heir and had a high-paying job. She was a little complacent and full of a sense of superiority. But now, a cruise ship that Jiang Tian casually gave to Zhao Xueqing was a fortune that she would never be able to earn in a lifetime, no 10 or 100 lifetimes. It was unattainable. Okay, Jiang Tian, you're amazing. You're so generous. On the deck, director Hu forced himself to calm down and said with a fake smile, but I'm not the main person today. But I'm not the main character today. If you can walk out of here in one piece, I'll take this slap for nothing. At that moment, a middle-aged man with an extraordinary aura and an expressionless face walked out of the banquet hall. Lawyer Wang, you're here. As soon as he came out, many tycoons and officials in the hall stood up and saluted him respectfully. Even director Hu hurriedly stepped aside. You're the Master Kong of Jinling? Wang Tianhe looked down at Jiang Tian and asked. That's me. Jiang Tian pulled out a tissue and carefully wiped the grease off Jiang Wan'er's mouth. He didn't even look at Wang Tianhe, as if the grease on Jiang Wan'er's mouth was 100 times more important than him. Master Kong, I'm Wang Tianhe, the founder of Zhonghai United Law Firm. I'm also the father of Wang Quan, whose limbs were broken by you. Wang Tianhe couldn't help but be angry. He scolded with a pale face. I want to ask Master Kong, what kind of grudge do you have with my son? Why are you so cruel to him? Do you have any respect for the law? Do I need a reason to hit him? I've already hit him. What can you do to me? Bite me if you dare. Jiang Tian wiped Jiang Wan's mouth clean with a tissue. Then with a flick of his hand, the dirty tissue hit Wang Tianhe's face. Grandmaster Jiang, aren't you being too arrogant? Do you know that even your mother, Madame Zhang Wanqing, wouldn't dare to be so disrespectful to me? Wang Tianhe was so angry that his whole body trembled and his teeth were almost broken. He could be said to be the #1 civil and commercial law litigator in China. Even those tycoons with billions of assets had to be courteous to him and treat him as a VIP. Coupled with his father's influence, even the officials and secretaries of the provinces and cities had to treat him with caution and avoid him. But at this moment Jiang Tian didn't put him in his eyes at all. Wang Tianhe, who do you think you are? You're not worthy of my Jiang family's respect. I've already been merciful to your son. Jiang Tian picked up the fruit plate and slowly peeled the grapes as he said with an indifferent expression. Do you think my son isn't miserable enough? Wang Tianhe was so angry that he almost fainted. He said angrily, if you don't show mercy, are you going to destroy my Wang family? That's right. In the face of Wang Tianhe's harsh questioning, Jiang Tian spat out 2 words with a calm face. As soon as the words came out, the whole place fell into dead silence. Everyone's jaw dropped. They couldn't believe their eyes. No matter how rich the Jiang family was, they were no match for the Wang family of Zhonghai when it came to political influence, especially in the legal field. Especially since this was Singapore, not Jin City. How dare you say that you want to destroy someone's family? This Grandmaster Jiang was a talent, but he was a little too arrogant and conceited. Mr. Jiang, you are too arrogant. You can do whatever you want in Wuxia, but this is Singapore. Singapore is a society governed by law. At this moment, along with a sarcastic voice, a refined noble young master with a calm temperament walked over lightly. Oh my God, isn't that He Junyi from the He family of Singapore? Everyone exclaimed when they saw him. Yeah, the He family is one of the top 4 families in Singapore. He Junyi and Guo Changsheng are also known as the 4 arrogant young lords of Singapore. He seems to know Jiang Tian and they seem to have a conflict. I don't think Kong Teichu will be able to leave Singapore. He is a local tyrant. How did he get on the bad side of the He family of Singapore? Everyone whispered to each other. By then they had realized that Jiang Tian was a troublemaker. He had offended the Yi family, the Wang family and the Su family of Zhonghai. Now He Junyi from the He family of Singapore had joined the fray. Mr. Jiang, I don't know if you regret your rejection of me yesterday. Along the way He Junyi's aura was huge and unrestrained. When he got close he looked at Jiang Tiandao with a hideous smile. Unfortunately there is no cure for regret in this world. Even if you are arrested the Jiang family will still beg for my help. By then not only will I get the distribution rights of your products, but I will also share the patent with you. Do you regret it now? It's not too late to beg for my help. He Junyi, you piece of trash, you ant, you don't know your place. Not to mention you, even your father and grandfather would have to kneel and kowtow to me when they see me. Jiang Tian said with disdain. He Junyi was so angry that he wanted to kick Zhang Tian to death. However, this was a foreign event, so he suppressed his anger and said, "Keep your mouth shut. The Wang family of Zhonghai is going to give you a hard time." As expected, Wang Tianhe cracked a smile and said, "You are wrong, Zhang Tian. Even if you are the tyrant of Jin City, it is just a small place. My Wang family is one of the most powerful families in Zhonghai." His eyes grew darker and darker as he sneered, "Do you know that I can send you to jail for what you just said? I have come prepared this time. I have recorded your words and I will submit them to the court of Singapore and send you to jail." He paused and then turned to the entrance of the banquet hall. He smiled and said, "Mr. Yi, please come out." A middle-aged man wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses sauntered out of the banquet hall. Suddenly, the banquet hall was filled with awe and admiration. Yi Baosher. Why is he here? He is the top lawyer in Singapore. He is the legal consultant of the Singapore Police Department. His family is also the chief judge. Mr. Wang is really something. I can't believe he managed to get Yi Baosher to come here. Even the way they looked at Wang Tianhe had changed. Wang Tianhe cracked a smile and said, "When I was studying at the Harvard Kennedy School of Politics, I often went to Chinatown with Mr. Yi." He couldn't hide his pride. It was an honor to be friends with an internationally renowned lawyer like Yi Baosher. Chapter 332. Zhang Tian is done for this time. How dare you say such things without thinking? Yi Baosher is the one who filed the lawsuit. You should know that Singapore is a society ruled by law. How dare a country bumpkin from Wuxia do whatever he wants here? Boss Fu was like a storyteller, shaking his head as he commented. In the end, he slapped the folding fan on the table. Like a wake-up call, he attracted everyone's attention. Only then did he make the final decision. No matter how capable Zhang Tian is, he won't be able to escape the law. Boss Zhang and the others all nodded, thinking that it made sense. No matter how powerful Zhang Tian was, he could only do whatever he wanted in Jinlin City. He couldn't even do anything in Zhonghai, let alone in Singapore. "Sir, please come with me to the police station for an investigation." Yi Baosher walked behind Zhang Tian and said in a low voice. "Yi Baosher, is the wound on your face healed?" Zhang Tian turned around slowly and asked with a smile. Zhang Tian was sitting with his back facing the exit of the hall. Yi Baosher didn't get a good look at Zhang Tian's face until he turned around. Suddenly, Yi Baosher felt like he had seen a ghost. He was scared out of his wits. "Zhang! Devil Zhang!" he screamed. He was so scared that his legs were cramping. Cold sweat broke out all over his body and soaked his shirt. Singapore was a tropical area. Even though it was winter, the temperature was still around 30 degrees Celsius. However, Yi Baosher felt as if he had been locked in a freezer. He would never forget how Zhang Tian had destroyed the Guo family, kicked over the explosion-proof police car, and destroyed the helicopter with a single slash. He would never forget the scene of Zhang Tian mercilessly stripping Guo Shihai of his life force and lifespan, killing Guo Junfeng and Guo Chongxing with a flick of his finger, and slaughtering the Guo clan until rivers of blood flowed. Devil King. Yes. In Yi Baosher's mind, Zhang Tian was a demon who killed people like flies, a demon who could swallow the heavens and destroy the earth. What was even more frightening was that Zhang Tian was still fine even after destroying the Guo family. He was leisurely cruising around the bay on a cruise. According to Deputy Commissioner Li of the police station, the entire government of Singapore had completely submitted to this person. He was reminded to never provoke Zhang Tian again. One man suppressing an entire country. In front of such a godly person, the laws and the rules of modern society were nothing. They were not worth mentioning at all. Huh. Lawyer Yi, what did you call me? I didn't hear you clearly. Say it again. Zhang Tian looked at him with a smile. Jiv. Yi Baosher hurriedly covered his mouth with his hands. His eyes were filled with terror. In an instant he felt his liver hurt. So much. In a moment of desperation he actually shouted out his impression of Zhang Tian, but it was too unpleasant to hear. Could he even call out the words Great Demon King? At this moment he was filled with hatred and wished he could slap himself a few times. Yi Baosher, where did your eloquence go when you were arguing with the crowd in the courtroom? You, Yi Baosher, had the ability to socialize with people in the circle of rich and powerful officials. What happened to you? My liver hurts so much. In a moment of desperation, he knelt on the ground with a thud and prostrated himself on the ground, wailing, "Grandmaster Jiang, I really didn't know it was you. If I knew it was you, I wouldn't have dared to come even if you beat me to death." There was nothing he could do. At this moment, Yi Baoshe really did not know how to express his apology to Jiang Tian and his sincerity in surrendering. "Fine, then kneel down. It's okay. Hurry up and leave. I don't want to see you." Jiang Tian waved his hand casually as if he was shooing away a fly. The current Kong Teichu was the reigning Grand Preceptor of Singapore. He could be called the King of Singapore and was on equal footing with the leaders of small countries like Singapore. Yi Baoshe was just a mere litigator. Someone at this level was like an ant. He was too lazy to kill him. "Thank you, Master Kong, for sparing my life." Yi Baoshe felt as if he had been pardoned. He ran to a crew member in a panic. "Is there a speedboat? It takes 10 minutes to get into the water. Is there a lifebuoy? Lend me one. Hurry up." Under the incredulous gaze of the crowd, Yi Baoshe took a lifebuoy and put it on. Then he flipped over the side of the boat and jumped into the water, disappearing. A few minutes later he reappeared. He spat out a mouthful of water and his legs and feet moved quickly. He used the dog paddle style and swam to the shore. He swam very fast and looked back at Jiang Tian with fear on his face from time to time. It was as if the person behind him was not a person but a great white shark. It was obvious how terrified he was of Jiang Tian. "Lawyer Wang, is this what you're relying on? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working very well." Jiang Tian took a sip of juice and smiled at Wang Tianhe, whose expression had changed drastically. "Mr. Fu, what do you think is going on? I can't believe Yi Baoshe is so scared." Mr. Zhang squeezed the jade bracelet tightly. He felt that today's drama was too good to be true. First, it was Director Hu who was slapped away by Jiang Tian. Then Miss Iris came over and gave the final word. Then the #1 lawyer in Zhonghai, Wang Tianhe, invited Yi Baoshe to help him. Then He Junyi, the young master of Singapore, tried his best to persuade Yi Baoshe. However, they were all defeated by Jiang Tian. Mr. Fu was a bit confused. Even though he was well informed, he still couldn't figure out what was going on. He could only frown and say, "I've heard that Grandmaster Jiang is a master of sorcery, and Singapore is the most superstitious place. Yi Baoshe has heard of some of his supernatural powers in Wuxia, so it's understandable that he's afraid. Doesn't that mean Grandmaster Jiang has completely turned the tables this time?" Mr. Zhang smiled. "I don't think so. Old man Yi hasn't come out yet." Mr. Fu shook his head and said. Everyone on the deck was in a state of panic. They all paid close attention to what was going on. Suddenly, the MC announced at the entrance of the banquet hall. "Mr. Yi Chida, Mayor Yi Weihao, and Mr. Yi Haochen are here to propose a toast." The entire place was shaken by this voice. Everyone on the deck and at the entrance of the banquet hall rose to their feet and looked over. They saw a tall and handsome young man walk out of a luxurious cabin with the help of an old man in a black suit. Yi Weihao stood beside the old man. "Old man Yi. Old man Yi is here." Many tycoons and officials at the banquet exclaimed in shock. "Even old man Yi is here. Look at Wuxia. How many people can stand up to him? Master Kong is in danger." Boss Fu slapped his thigh and laughed mischievously as if he had expected this to happen. Along the way, Yi Chida greeted everyone and occasionally chatted with people. Every casual sentence he said was a gem, showing his profound learning and international vision. He was worthy of being a renowned scholar. To be able to shake hands with him and chat with him, all the rich and powerful officials were flattered and felt honored. He was a leading figure in the economics field in Wuxia. He was a senior counselor of the government council. He was a scholar who could give lectures to national leaders. It could be said that his words and actions could influence the national policy of Wuxia. He could easily change the future of an industry. Many provincial officials had to greet him respectfully. "Old man Yi," or Professor Yi. Finally, Yi Chida walked out of the crowd and stopped in front of Jiang Tian. He looked down at Jiang Tian from above. Under the admiring gazes of many people, he said with burning eyes, "Are you the rumored Master Jiang of Jinling?" "Yes, that is me." Even though Yi Chida was there, Jiang Tian was still calm and collected. He calmly fed Jiang Wan. It was as if the world was not as big as the little girl in his arms. "You are indeed a talented young man." Yi Chida wasn't angry at Jiang Tian's disrespect. Instead he sized up Zhang Tian and said, "You are only in your 20s. You are younger than my master's students, but you have already made a name for yourself in Jin City. Even though I live in Zhonghai, I have heard of Master Kang's name." Suddenly he changed the topic. His eyes suddenly turned cold and a cold light burst out from his eyes. "I have heard that you are a master of martial arts and that you can easily kill people and wipe out their families. Is that true?" "Yes, so what?" Zhang Tian looked up for the first time and his eyes met Yichida's. The moment he saw Zhang Tian's eyes, Yichida's heart skipped a beat and he suddenly felt chills all over his body. Looking at Wuxia, even the children of the rich and powerful in Yanjin could remain calm in front of him. Most of them seemed as if they were treading on thin ice, and they were trembling with fear and caution. It was even to the extent that their gazes were cowering like quails. However, Zhang Tian's gaze was indifferent, extremely indifferent. It was as if he was a god looking down on ants. In his eyes, it was as if human lives were as worthless as grass. He could kill 10,000 people by himself. There was also a kind of calm domineering aura, as if he could kill all the gods and Buddhas in the sky, tear the sky and break the earth. It was as if he were an emperor who could rule the world and decide the fate of the righteous path. The lines on his face were like the peak of an ancient glacier. Yichida's heart was beating wildly. He had only seen this kind of sharp and terrifying gaze from Taizu Denggong and a few other founding fathers of the country. "Zhang Tian, you've gone too far. Old Lord Yi is a respected person. What's with your attitude?" Wang Tianhe scolded. "What's with your attitude? Old Lord Yi is old enough to be your grandfather. Don't you know the virtue of respecting the old and caring for the young?" Yi Haochen also scolded. Don't think you're so great just because you're dominating Jinling. Grandfather Yi can reach the heavens, he can directly talk to the big shots in the central government. He just needs to casually hand in a report and your Jiang family will be finished." He Junyi said angrily. In a blink the entire deck was filled with mocking voices. Jiang Tian seemed to be the target of public criticism. Even Mai Shilong and Han Yan were frightened and didn't dare to speak for Jiang Tian. When everyone was criticizing Jiang Tian, Yichida's mind also gradually calmed down. He waved his hands and waited for everyone to quiet down. Then he looked at Jiang Tian with his hands behind his back and said, "Grandmaster Jiang, for you to have such achievements at such a young age, it can be said that you're absolutely stunning. But you have to understand that the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. You should keep a low profile and be kind to others. You shouldn't be making enemies everywhere and fighting like you are now." Yichida assumed the posture of an elder and looked down from above. He raised his voice by an octave and lectured in an imposing manner. "Let me remind you, Wuxia isn't up to a kid like you. This isn't your territory in Jinlin City and it's not a place where you can do whatever you want." As soon as he finished speaking, the entire deck was silent. Everyone could feel that there was a needle hidden in his words. It could be said that there was a spear in his words and his killing intent was overflowing. His words were equivalent to a death sentence for Jiang Tian. It meant that he was going to report to the central government and make suggestions to suppress the Jiang family. Chapter 333. Everyone's expression changed drastically, each with different opinions. Sympathy, ridicule, shock, inquiry and disbelief. Su Jie and the others were even gloating at his misfortune. It seemed that Jiang Tian could no longer turn the tables. He could only admit defeat and even beg for mercy. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian just took a sip of juice and said indifferently, "Who do you think you are? How dare you call yourself old man in front of me? I think it's more appropriate to call you old man." What did you say? How dare you insult old Master Yi? Do you know how much old Master Yi has contributed to the economic development of Wuxia? Arrogant. Ignorant. Old Master Yi has worked his heart out for the economic development of Wuxia. He is a meritorious official of the country. As soon as these words came out, it really angered everyone. Everyone cursed and wanted to grind Jiang Tian's bones to ashes to vent their anger. Even Yichida, who had amazing self-restraint, was so angry that his face was livid. The veins on Yi Weihao's forehead were throbbing. A great traitor looks loyal. He looks like a loyal official, but he is a national traitor. Jiang Tian sneered and stood up. "Mr. Yi, May I ask if you are the one who proposed the management reform of Wuxia's state-owned enterprises? Everyone was suddenly stunned. Master Kang's thinking jumped too fast. He jumped from scolding to academic discussion in an instant. However, wasn't discussing academic matters with Yichida like showing off in front of Guan Yu? It was the biggest joke in the world. It's me. Yichida said proudly. Enterprises owned by the whole people are facing the problem of the lack of managers. Professional managers will not work hard to achieve good results. Only when the enterprise is privately owned will there be such motivation. Nonsense. Jiang Tian said in a deep voice. In fact, Wuxia's state-owned enterprises are very similar to the listed companies in the United States. Because the listed companies in the United States are public companies, their shares are very scattered. However, in the listed companies in the United States, is there any professional manager who dares to not run the company well? If you don't do well, the shareholders will vote with their feet and ask you to step down. It was not like what old Mr. Yi said. It was natural for the factory directors and managers of state-owned enterprises not to run the company well. But if the company became the manager of the state-owned enterprise, then all the problems would be solved. This is putting the cart before the horse. Jiang Tian's gaze was as sharp as a knife as he looked directly at Yichida. He said indifferently, Mr. Yi and everyone, let me make a very simple analogy. A state-owned enterprise was a house owned by every citizen. A housekeeper who was also the manager of the state-owned enterprise was hired to clean the house. But this nanny didn't clean the house properly, so Mr. Yichida thought that this nanny bought the house and made it his. Once he became the owner of the house, the nanny would clean the house diligently. Isn't this nonsense? Everyone was stunned. This Grandmaster Jiang wasn't a boorish fellow and he seemed to know a little. Mr. Jiang, I admit that you have a very intuitive judgment of economic theory, but it is only a very superficial judgment. Yichida was slightly taken aback. Then he said with a mocking expression, the nanny bought this house but paid for it. It's equivalent to a state-owned asset in another way in the form of cash. Only by withdrawing from a completely competitive industry can economic vitality be stimulated. This is the consensus of everyone. Then there are two problems that need to be solved. Jiang Tian said indifferently, who decided the price of this house? Where did the money for the nanny to buy the house come from? According to common sense, the price of the house should be decided by the owner of the house. At the very least, an appraisal company should be hired to give a fair and just evaluation. The money to buy the house must be from the nanny. If the money isn't enough, it should be borrowed from the outside for financing. But as far as I know, the management of many state-owned enterprises, the appraisal and pricing of the company's assets are decided by the management. The source of the funds are all from the state-owned enterprises' accounts, or they use the state-owned enterprises under their control as collateral for financing. This is completely putting the left pocket into the right pocket. It's like trying to gain something without risking anything. Mr. Yi, right now, the management of Wuxia's state-owned enterprises, MBOs, have caused the loss of state-owned assets. I think Mr. Yi should know better than me. If you don't know, let me tell you for words, shocking. And why do you, Mr. Yi, still advocate such a deformed system? You should know better. For the country and the people? What a joke. Isn't it to fill your own pockets? When Jiang Tian said this, Yichida's face suddenly changed. He wanted to cover Jiang Tian's mouth. His hands trembled as he said, I admit that there are some problems in this, but the reform must be pushed forward. We can't give up eating for fear of choking. He wanted to stop this argument. But Jiang Tian still said, the acquisition of Huajin Group, one of the top 10 state-owned enterprises in Zhonghai, was controlled by the Yi family behind the scenes. A company with a real value of 12 billion, you only spent 300 million to get it and you used the Social Security Fund. The Yi family is robbing money. I admire you. For a moment, everyone looked at the Yi family suspiciously. Their attitude seemed to be shaken. They were also very curious as to how Jiang Tian knew all this. But Jiang Tian was too clear about this. In his previous life, in 2011, the Zhonghai Social Security Fund case and the Yi family's family-style corruption case broke out. Many of the Yi family's executives were arrested, and it shook the whole country. Due to the huge amount of money involved, the nature of the case was bad and it was a classic example. It also caused a lot of controversy in the economic field. Some scholars said, this is a Wuxia-style MBO filled with flowers and traps. They even published a book on the case. The first case was the case of the management of Huajin Group being MBO at a low price. Wang Tianhe pointed at Jiang Tian and reprimanded, "You didn't participate in the restructuring of this company, so what do you know about the inside story? It's complete nonsense. Just based on your words I can sue you for slander." But after he said that he felt that the threat was weak and powerless. Jiang Tian was not afraid to admit that he had killed someone or even killed an entire family. Why would he be afraid of this? The ignorant are fearless. You don't know anything so you dare to say anything. Impudent brat. But he managed to pull everyone back from their shock. For a moment, everyone was scolding him. Wang Tianhe sneered, "Jiang Tian, you are indeed a genius, but you should know that there is always someone better than you. I don't know why you dare to look down on the powerful families of Zhonghai. Grandmaster Jiang is not an ordinary person. He is a martial arts expert and a master of magic arts. He once cured Elder Tang of Lin Zhou's strange disease and can drink and chat merrily with Secretary Tang Weiman of Lingnan Yangqing, right?" Yi Haochen looked at Jiang Tian with a half-smile. He was like a wise man. Old man Tang? Tang Guizhu? Tang Weiman's father? Everyone gasped in shock. They had never thought that Jiang Tian was so powerful. However, the shock only lasted for a second. Tang Weiman was working in Linzhou City, which was too far away from Zhonghai. Yi Weihao, on the other hand, was the mayor of Zhonghai. He would soon become the secretary of the government and become an important member of the government. How could the Tang family compare to him? Does he think he can do whatever he wants with the Tang family? When I meet Tang Weiman in the future, I will ask him if he can do whatever he wants. Yi Weihao finally opened his mouth and snorted. The Yi family was one of the top 3 families in Zhonghai. However, the Tang family had only risen to power in the last 2 years. If it was 3 years ago, even Tang Guizhu would have to be courteous to Yi Qida and call him old sir. He wasn't afraid of Tang Weiman or even Elder Tang, let alone Jiang Tian, a mere guest of the Tang clan. Suddenly, a middle-aged man with neatly combed hair walked out of the banquet hall with a glass of red wine in his hand. He smiled and said, "Old man Yi, ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Fan may be very busy, but he has been keeping a close eye on the free trade zone between Zhonghai and Singapore. That is why he sent me here to congratulate you on the smooth progress of the negotiations. Here is a toast to all of you." "Isn't Director Lu working for Secretary Fan?" Boss Fu's face darkened. He slapped his thigh and laughed. "This time Jiang Tian is not going to make a comeback. Master Kong is a powerful man, but I'm afraid he is not going to make it." Boss Zhang heaved a sigh and said regretfully. Everyone's face paled when they saw the newcomer. Even Mai Shilong and Han Yen started to worry about Jiang Tian. They had never thought that the Yi family would invite Director Lu, one of Secretary Fan's most trusted men, to the banquet. Now that Director Lu was on the Yi family's side, Secretary Fan's attitude was clear as day. The Wang family of Zhonghai had great influence in the judicial field of the Yangtze River Delta region. The Yi family had the backing of a governor and a leading economist. The Su family was one of the most powerful families in the Jin City military. With the support of Secretary Fan of Su Province and He Junyi of Singapore, they could crush 10 Jiang families. Wang Tianhe, Su Yuhang, Yi Haochen, He Junyi. These people were all heavyweights. When they came over, Jiang Tian might be able to rely on his relationship with the Tang clan to resist them. However, as soon as Director Lu arrived, a heavy weight was immediately placed on the table. Even the Tang family was rendered useless. After all, the Tang family's influence was limited to Lingnan and could not reach the Su province. Tang Weiman was just the secretary of the provincial government. He was not even in the top 3 on the standing committee. Secretary Fan, on the other hand, was the highest-ranking official in the Su province. Furthermore, Secretary Fan was in charge of the Su province and his words carried weight. The Su province was his territory. No matter how powerful Jiang Tian was, he was just a commoner in the Su province. How could he withstand Secretary Fan's pressure? By then, the Tang family was useless, so Jiang Tian could only rely on himself to face the powerful families of Zhonghai. However, with his own strength, how could he make a comeback? Seeing that Director Lu had appeared on behalf of Secretary Fan, Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Secretary Fan had been transferred to the Su province in the past month. He did not even show up when Zhou Xian visited the old man's birthday. He probably did not know about the Jiang family's background at all. Maybe he had some ties with the Yi family, so he decided to stand up for them. However, if he knew the true strength of Jiang Tian and the Jiang family, he would probably avoid them. Master Kong, aren't you very powerful? I wonder how you can turn the tables in this situation. Yi Haochen took a sip of red wine and said with a mocking smile, I'm afraid you're at your wits' end now. Alas, Qing, if you didn't have Yi Haochen as a comparison, you would have become a phoenix after marrying Jiang Tian. However, compared to Yi Haochen, who is a real noble, your husband is far inferior. You should have held on to Boss Yi back then. Even if you missed him, you shouldn't have hit him. Your husband is fueling the conflict again. At this time, even Su Jie's mentality was shaken again, and a look of regret flashed in her eyes. Chapter 334. When Jiang Tian gifted Zhao Xueqing a $1 billion cruise ship, she was envious of him. However, compared to Yi Haochen's power and influence, Jiang Tian looked like a country bumpkin. Moreover, it was not as simple as showing off his family background and connections. First, they would arrange the troops, and then they would probably drive the tiger to devour the wolf. The Jiang family was in danger, and Jiang Tian might even be imprisoned, his family ruined. She shook her head with a wry smile and mumbled under her breath. So many twists and turns. I have seen him build a skyscraper and host a banquet, and now the building is going to collapse. At this time there was a commotion at the boarding gate. Su Yuhang, accompanied by a general, walked over quickly. They were Officer Su from the Zhonghai Garrison Force and a senior official from the Jin City Military. Isn't that Su Yuhang and his father? They are here to suppress Master Kong? This time it's really over. Grandmaster Jiang will die without a burial ground. Mai Shilong's face paled as his heart sank. Even if Jiang Tian was a martial arts expert and a master of sorcery, how could he have the strength to fight against such a force? Behind them were many high-ranking officials from Singapore's government and military, including Prime Minister Li Xianlong. What was even more terrifying was that they were accompanied by a large number of armed police officers. This battle formation is monstrous. Boss Fu's heart skipped a beat. The climax of the night had finally arrived. He would be able to witness the fall of Jiang Tian with his own eyes. Meanwhile, Boss Zhang heaved a sigh and said, Master Kong is a genius, but he doesn't know how to be patient. If he had been patient for another 20 years, he might have been able to stand up to the Yi family. Someone complained resentfully, Boss Zhang, you're asking him to endure it? How is that possible? He is just a nouveau riche. His grandpa is just a doctor and his dad used to be a divisional leader. Now that his dad has been promoted and his mom has become rich, he is going to be arrogant. In the final analysis, their foundation is still too weak. They think that they are rich just because they have a little bit of money and power, and their mentality is inflated. How could they know that compared with the Yi and Wang family, the Jiang family is just a nouveau riche? Someone sneered. On the deck, facing Yi Haochen's interrogation, everyone thought that Jiang Tian would definitely lower his head and admit defeat. Unexpectedly, he only shook his head indifferently, looked around at everyone and said with a chuckle, Yi Haochen, is this your insignificant reliance? Insignificant support? Everyone was taken aback. Even Yi Haochen almost spat out a mouthful of red wine. Bro, you like to show off, but you should at least evaluate your opponent's strength. Unless you are really the illegitimate son of a central government boss, as the rumors say, how can you deal with such a situation? Jiang Tian looked at Yi Haochen indifferently and said lazily, Yi Haochen, I will give you 2 days. I hope you can figure out my background and back off. After all, you helped my wife in the past and I don't want to embarrass you. He took a sip of the juice and shook his head regretfully. 2 days isn't a short time, but you only managed to find out this much information and found a few crooked melons to be your reinforcements. I really overestimated you. You really disappoint me. In fact, Jiang Tian really overestimated the Yi family's ability. To put it bluntly, the Yi family was just a secular family with a few officials and a few enterprises. Their assets were only tens of billions, which was far from the Jiang family. They could not be compared to the Guo family of Xingzhou, who controlled hundreds of billions of XINU dollars and almost trillions of Wuxia dollars and could influence the politics of a country. But what about the Guo family of Xingzhou? Jiang Tian could destroy them with a wave of his hand. They were the support of the Xingzhou Chinese Association, which had a transcendent status. Jiang Tian could destroy them with a wave of his hand. What was a mere Yi family? The Wei family of Yangqing, the Hong family of Yi province, and the Mo family of Lingnan were all big families that dominated a province. They had many martial artists and sorcerers, had a history of hundreds of years, and controlled several listed companies. How could the Su and Wang families compare to them? But Jiang Tian still destroyed them with a wave of his hand. Cao Shixiang was a real central government official. His granddaughter Cao Jinjia was not a good-for-nothing and was a member of the Long Formation. But at the Martial Arts Alliance conference, Jiang Tian still slapped them in the face. As a result, Cao Shixiang came over on grandfather Jiang Chongging's birthday and asked Cao Jinjia to apologize. Jiang Tian was now the first grandmaster on the divine list in Wuxia. He was only one step away from the real immortal state. He was able to compete with Yi Zhantian and was even showing signs of catching up with him. The central government officials would either try to rope him in or keep him at arm's length. But no one dared to offend him. However, Jiang Tian had overestimated Yi Haochen's ability to uncover his true identity. They were not even as powerful as the Tang family, the Bai family, and the Tai family of Lingnan. They might be on par in terms of wealth and political influence, but the three major families of Lingnan were at least on par with the Wei family and the Mo family. But the Yi family of Zhonghai had no such resources. Whether he was the top grandmaster on the divine list, the top 3 on the CIA dark roll, the martial arts consultant of Zhanlong, or the grand preceptor of Xingzhou, these were all secrets in the world of martial arts. Clans like the Yi clan and the Wang clan appeared to be very powerful, but at the end of the day they were just secular clans. They didn't even have the qualifications to hear this news. Maybe the Su family knew because they were backed by the military and had their own sources of information. Therefore, Yi Haochen's investigation was limited to Jiang Tian's political connections. He thought that Jiang Tian was the Tang family's guest elder and had to rely on the Tang family. Little did he know that the Tang family was relying on him. Poor Yi Haochen. His cleverness had backfired on him. He had neglected the essentials and chased after the trifles. What do you mean? Yi Haochen's eyes glinted with uncertainty. He couldn't understand why Jiang Tian was still willing to fight to the death with the army of Xingzhou. Was he not going to give up until he saw the coffin? What I mean is, you're an idiot who doesn't know the difference between life and death. Jiang Tian's face was calm as he smiled faintly. Yi Haochen was so angry that the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He wanted to punch Jiang Tian in the face. Forget it, young Master Yi. He's just being stubborn. Why do you have to lower yourself to his level? Wang Tianhe stopped him and signaled Su Yuhang and the others with his eyes, indicating that they should watch from the sidelines. The situation is over. He should have admitted defeat and given up. Maybe he would have had a chance to live. But the young man is too hot-tempered and wants to fight to the death. How could he have known that the situation is far beyond his control? Boss Fu shook his head and sighed. Yes, the strong are easy to break. Sometimes emotional intelligence is very important. Boss Zhang also looked regretful. He got up and wanted to go to the cabin. He couldn't bear to see Jiang Tian's tragic fate. He was a farmer who had made tens of billions of yuan by contracting small factories in towns to make car parts. Speaking of which, he recognized Jiang Tian, who started from scratch and didn't rely on political protection. He even saw the daring and reckless Jiang Tian in the past. But in the new century, the social environment had changed significantly. The tide of the underworld had fallen, the grass had retreated, and dragons and snakes were dormant. In this world, the rich and powerful had the final say. Qing'er, your husband will get you killed. Don't be foolish. Hurry up and beg young Master Yi. Su Jia couldn't stand it anymore. She pulled Zhao Xueqing's hand and said, Young Master Yi is very affectionate towards you. All of this happened because of you. If you lower your head and beg for mercy, he will definitely let you go. You saw it too. The Yi family is a real rich and powerful family. How can the Jiang family afford to offend them? Zhao Xueqing's face was calm. She gently broke away from her and held Jiang Tian's hand. Their fingers intertwined and a sweet and stable smile appeared on her face. She looked at Jiang Tian's side profile affectionately and said softly, I won't lower my head. My husband doesn't need to lower his head to anyone because he is the strongest man. He alone is the strongest rich and powerful family in the world. Huh. Su Jia was completely stunned. She was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. All the rich people present were also stunned. Did this girl watch too many dramas about domineering CEOs? She was too stupid and chunibu. At this time, Su Yuhang suddenly increased his speed, walking over towards Jiang Tian with large strides. Little Su, go easy on him. After all, this is a foreign occasion, Yi Haochen said as he walked over. However, deep in his eyes, there was a strong sense of schadenfreude. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Su Yuhang quickly walked behind Jiang Tian. Then he slammed his legs together, raised his right hand to his eyebrows, and straightened his back like a javelin. It was a standard military salute. He shouted, "Consultant Jiang, Colonel Su Yuhang salutes you." For a moment the entire hall was silent. Everyone looked at this scene with their mouths agape. They were full of confusion and disbelief. "Consultant? What consultant?" Wang Tianhe asked subconsciously, his face full of astonishment. "What consultant? Of course, it's Battle Dragon's martial arts consultant. Moreover, it's the title of chief consultant," Han Yen-er said coquettishly. Her peerlessly enchanting face was 3 parts curious, 3 parts respectful and a little bit excited. Master Kang's counterattack was about to begin. If she wasn't married to Mai Shilong, she would have thrown herself at him even if she was his mistress. What? Battle Dragon's martial arts consultant. The entire hall was shocked. Everyone's eyes were filled with awe. Battle Dragon was the trump card of the General Staff Department. It was far more powerful than the special forces of ordinary military regions. Silver Fox of the Jinling military region and Fierce Tiger of the Lingnan military region were worlds apart from them. Of course, Battle Dragon's level of secrecy was very high. Very few people knew who was in charge and who was in charge of it. However, this didn't prevent people from knowing what Battle Dragon's martial arts consultant meant. Zhan Long's martial arts consultant could be said to have a higher status than the chief instructor. Those who could become Zhan Long's martial arts consultant were all martial arts giants. Even Tang Guizhu was far from that position. Only martial arts tyrants like Hong Tianzhao, Zhao Yuankuan, Mo Haoxiong, and Wu Yingxiong were qualified. Furthermore, Battle Dragon's martial arts consultants were all highly sought after by the military. If they had the intention to pursue an official career, they would be promoted to Major General. He is Battle Dragon's martial arts consultant. Boss Fu's eyes were wide open. For the first time he realized that Jiang Tian could turn the tables. This is going to be interesting. Boss Zhang, who had lost interest and was about to leave, sat down again and looked at Jiang Tian in shock. Chapter 335. No wonder Lin Zhou's Tang family fully supports him. He's Battle Dragon's martial arts consultant. Someone in the audience murmured to himself. Although Yi Weihao could suppress Jiang Tian in terms of position, Jiang Tian could even surpass Yi Weihao in terms of influence. This was because of Battle Dragon's uniqueness. There was an old saying in the influential class, the Central Guard Bureau is inside and the Battle Dragon Special Forces is outside. In other words, the Central Guard Bureau was responsible for the safety of the Central Guard Bureau, but the Battle Dragon Special Forces took the initiative to attack and carry out top-secret missions. In peacetime, Battle Dragon was one of the few frontline combat forces, and its importance was self-evident. Therefore, Battle Dragon was also trusted by the Central Guard Bureau's big shots. Battle Dragon's martial arts consultant's influence was far beyond that of an ordinary major general. Jiang Tian ignored Wang Tianhe, Yi Haochen, and the others' horrified gazes and looked at Su Yuhang. He said indifferently, "Do you know who I am now?" Reporting to the chief consultant, "I know." Su Yuhang's face was full of reverence. He straightened his body again, but he still couldn't help but tremble slightly. He said with tears in his eyes, "I went to Battle Dragon to receive 3 months of secret training this year. The martial arts I learned were all precious treasures left by Master Kong to Battle Dragon. Unfortunately, I was kicked out of Battle Dragon because I failed the assessment 3 years ago. I returned to Jinling Military District to be the chief instructor of Silver Fox." He roared loudly, "But once in Battle Dragon, always in Battle Dragon. As your student, I rudely offended you. Please punish me." Little Su, you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you offended Chief Consultant Jiang or not. You shouldn't have hit people. Jiang Tianyu sincerely reprimanded. You're living off the country's salary and you've learned monstrous skills. As an elite in the army, your fist should be used to protect the country, not to stand up for your friends, fight for your friends' favor and bully the common people. Yes. Chief Consultant is right. Su Yohong's tears rolled down and his face was full of shame. When he arrived at the Battle Dragon Special Training 3 months ago, he was deeply shocked by the Tyrant Body Spirit Liquid and various martial skill training methods left behind by Jiang Tian. It was also said that Zhang Long had gone to the northeast to intercept the remnants of Qiao Bin's party, who had been relying on Russia. His achievements were so great that they were even better than Yi Zhantian's long formation. From then on he worshipped Chief Advisor Jiang to the extreme, but he did not know the identity of Chief Advisor Jiang. After being tortured by Jiang Tian, he became more cautious and called his father. Only then did he know that Jiang Tian was the famous Kong Teichu. It's good that you know you're wrong. Go back. You'll be grounded for 10 days. Resign from all your positions and start from the bottom. Jiang Tian said calmly. Yes, Chief Consultant. Su Yuhang didn't even hesitate for a moment. He immediately saluted, turned around and strode away. Everyone was shocked. Everyone looked at the tall figure on the deck in astonishment. What did it mean to subdue an enemy without a fight? This was what it meant to subdue an enemy without a fight. It could be said that Jiang Tian dealt with Su Yuhang without any hesitation. With just a few words, Su Yuhang's position and future were decided. So he has such a powerful trump card. No wonder Qing'er is so confident in him. Su Jie murmured to herself in shock. At this moment she was once again envious of Zhao Xueqing. It could be said that Jiang Tian alone could suppress Yi Haochen with the title of Zhan Long's martial arts consultant. After all, Zhan Long was a member of the Special Forces under the Supreme General Staff. His influence was far greater than that of the General Major Generals. The fact that he could compete with Yi Weihao was already beyond the reach of the general magnates. Everyone present also realized this point. For a moment Wang Tianhe, Yi Haochen and the others were silent. Even Secretary Fan's favorite, Director Liu, wanted to retreat. He retreated to a secluded corner and anxiously made a phone call to report the situation to his superior. After all, Secretary Fan only had some relationship with the Yi family. They were far from being allies. Why would he need to break his head for Yu and Jiang Tian? However, a martial arts consultant of Zhan Long won't make the Yi family retreat. Jiang Tian publicly swept away the Yi family's face. How can Yi Qida be willing to leave the matter at that? Boss Fu suddenly opened his folding fan and gently fanned himself. He smiled calmly and said, the Yi family also has a governor. Moreover, Yi Qida is the teacher of the emperor. In terms of seniority and experience, Elder Yi is still a notch above him. If Old Master Yi is determined to suppress him, the Yi family has a better chance of winning. That's not necessarily true. I think Master Kong is not a reckless person even though he acts like a storm. If he wasn't completely confident he would never go against the Yi family. Boss Zhang said excitedly. Boss Zhang, you seem to be in the mood to watch the show. Do you dare to make a bet? Boss Fu smiled. Sure. If Master Kong turns the tables, you'll have to give me Qi Baisher's bamboo and stone painting that you just bought at the Christie's autumn auction for 10 million. Boss Zhang immediately accepted the challenge. Everyone kept their mouths shut and looked at Yi Qida. In the current situation, Yi Haochen, Wang Tianhe, He Junyi and even Yi Weihao were useless. Other than Yi Qida, no one could suppress Jiang Tian. Only Yi Qida could decide whether to fight or to make peace. How could Yi Qida not know Jiang Tian's current strength? How could he not know the danger of this battle? It could be said that he was 30% afraid of Jiang Tian, 30% in admiration and 40% in importance. However, the stronger Jiang Tian was, the more he wanted to kill Jiang Tian. The grudge had already been formed, and Jiang Tian also knew some of the Yi family's scandals during the restructuring of the state-owned enterprises. This was not as simple as a battle of loyalty but a life-and-death battle. Jiang Tian was still young and relatively weak, but he had a lot of room for growth. Who could imagine what kind of monster Jiang Tian would grow into in 10 or 20 years? The best way was to nip the bud in the bud while he was still weak. He could not let the tiger return to the mountain. Thinking of this, Yichida's eyes flashed and he said in a deep voice, "Master Kong, you are indeed extraordinary, but even a prince is punished the same as a commoner. You broke the limbs of a prince in public and your hands were stained with blood. Even if Tang Hongtu and Zhou Xian were here, this old man would also ask, is Battle Dragon's people allowed to commit such atrocities and disregard military law?" Yichida was like a high mountain eagle, looking down at the young man who seemed to be standing proudly in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Moreover, you are only a martial arts consultant of Battle Dragon. You have no military position. You are nothing but a Jianghu bumpkin. How dare you offend the delegation of Zhonghai and affect the economic development of two countries? This is a major event that the central government is paying attention to. If there is a chance, I would like to ask the central government if you have the right to do so." As soon as these words came out, the whole place was filled with murderous intent. Flattery after flattery came one after another. Even if Zhou Xian stepped forward, he might not be able to help Jiang Tian block it. Even Zhao Xueqing was a little nervous. Jiang Tian's behavior could be light or heavy. If it was light, it could be considered a fight, but if it was serious, it could be considered as offending the delegation of foreign affairs that represented the government and the country's dignity. Even if it was not put into law, Yichida would still make it worse if he reported it to the central government. Although Jiang Tian was related to the military, how could the country not be afraid of his supernatural power? It should be noted that many countries used nuclear weapons to attack and deter immortal state warriors in the past. Otherwise, how could there be this transcendent strength of 10,000 horses, and how could there be the current peace and prosperity? Killing, keeping, using, or suppressing Jiang Tian's supernatural power was only a matter of time for the central government officials to decide. In an instant, many thoughts flashed through Zhao Xueqing's mind. But as smart as she was, there was nothing she could do. She clenched her fists so hard that her fingernails dug into the flesh of her palms. The next moment, Yichida looked at Li Xianlong and said in a deep voice, "Premier Li, although this man is from Wuxia, he deliberately hurt people in Singapore. Please mobilize the military and police to arrest him." Li Xianlong's Chinese was not very good. Seeing that Jiang Tian seemed to have a conflict with them, he kept asking the interpreter to introduce him. Hearing this, Li Xianlong immediately became anxious. He quickly walked up to Jiang Tian and bowed deeply. He spoke in the most respectful tone he had ever used in his life. "Lord State Preceptor, if you have any orders, I will carry them out to the letter. Would you like me to deport them?" "Lord State Preceptor?" When the crowd heard those words, they were all completely shocked and confused. Everyone stared in shock at the monarch of the Singapore continent, who was kneeling in front of Jiang Tian, as if he was a believer facing a god. "He is the State Preceptor of Singapore?" Everyone present was stunned. They were so shocked that they were tongue-tied. It was as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Clatter. The wine glass in Yi Haochen's hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Su Jie covered her red lips and suppressed the exclamation that was about to come out. Her full breasts rose and fell violently, creating dazzling ripples. Wasn't Jiang Tian from Jin City? How did he suddenly become the State Preceptor of Singapore? This was unbelievable. In particular, He Junyi's expression changed abruptly. His brows were tightly knitted together and a grave expression appeared on his face. "What?" He Junyi's face paled. He suddenly thought of a possibility and broke out in a cold sweat. Even Yichida's brows furrowed and his heart sank. How could he be the State Preceptor of Singapore? "Premier Li, you must be mistaken. He was a Huaxia citizen through and through. Moreover, he was still a lunatic 2 years ago." Director Hu shouted anxiously with a pale face. He had been driven crazy by Jiang Tian. What was going on? The visiting team of Zhonghai had run into a wall one after another. However, Jiang Tian had shown his trump cards repeatedly and each one was more terrifying than the last. First, he was the crown prince of the Jiang family, the owner of Princess Jenny, the chief consultant of Battle Dragon Club, and now he was the State Preceptor of Singapore. What the fuck? However, he couldn't believe it. There must be a mistake. It must be a lie. It was impossible. "Sir, please be careful with your words." Li Xianlong didn't know who the man was. After all, Director Hu was only Li Weihao's butler. However, even if it was Yi Weihao who said it, he still had to talk back. Li Xianlong said solemnly, The state preceptor of Xing continent is the guardian of Xing continent. He's the god of the people of Xing continent. How dare you speak of our state preceptor Jiang Taichu in such a manner? Banishing you from the country is already a light punishment. I'll sentence you to life imprisonment or even death by shooting you. Chapter 336. The majesty of the ruler of a country was not to be trifled with. Director whose face was pale. He was so scared that he trembled and did not dare to speak. Kong Taichu. Suddenly Mr. Zhang slapped his thigh and shouted excitedly, "A few days ago, I heard that Kong Taichu bought the Guo family's assets worth hundreds of billions of XNU dollars, which is equivalent to trillions of Wuxia dollars. Could it be the Grandmaster Zhang in front of us?" Yes, it's him. I heard that he's already the chairman of the Guo group, but he only appeared once during Guo Lily's CEO ceremony. After that there was no news of him. Another tycoon said in realization. Even if the state preceptor controls the Guo family, he can't break the law and attack our delegation, right? Wang Tianhe's eyes were red with anger. He shouted, since he's a citizen of Wuxia, he has to abide by the laws of Wuxia. He broke my son's limbs. There's evidence and witnesses. There's no way he can deny it. Unless he never returns to Wuxia. If he does, I'll sue him. As soon as he said this, many people nodded in agreement. Jiang Tian was a citizen of Wuxia. Singapore believed in feng shui, but Wuxia was a materialistic country. They did not believe in such things. As long as he returned to Wuxia, he would be sued. It didn't matter how much money he had. Even if Guo Shihai did this, he would have to pay a certain price. After all, his son was lying on the hospital bed. If he bowed his head and apologized, civil compensation and even criminal liability would be difficult to escape. At this time, Han Yener had confirmed Jiang Tian's identity and knew that the information she had gathered was true. She said softly, the state preceptor of Singapore and the Guo family wouldn't dare to attack the rich and powerful of Wuxia. But what if Master Kong is the top grandmaster on the divine roll of Wuxia? That's the number one grandmaster on the divine list. Not to mention breaking Wang Quan's limbs even if he killed him, so what? She looked at Jiang Tian like a die-hard fan who had just met her idol. Also, do you think that Master Kong invested in the acquisition of the Guo family in Singapore? The Jiang family only has a few $100 billion worth of assets. Even if they sold everything they had, they wouldn't be able to buy the Guo family. As soon as she said this, many rich people felt that it was inconceivable. Their outlook on life was overturned and smashed to pieces. Can a grandmaster on the divine list get away with murder? What do you mean? The Jiang family can't afford to buy the Guo family. Is there any inside story? I heard that there was some internal strife in the Guo family some time ago. Guo Lily hired an expert to kill her father and grandfather. Everyone whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. The Guo family owes Master Kong 10 billion, but they will never repay it. Mr. Jiang will step into the Guo family, eliminate the two family heads, Guo Shihai and Guo Junfeng, and push Guo Lily to the top. Han Yener smiled. So he was the one who destroyed the Guo family. Yi Haocheng was horrified. Plop, plop. He Junyi couldn't take it anymore. He knelt on the ground and was the first to surrender. He slapped himself in the face and said with tears and snot running down his face, State Preceptor Jiang, please forgive me. I have eyes but failed to recognize your greatness. I know I was wrong. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. State Preceptor Jiang had destroyed the Guo family, the most powerful Chinese family in Singapore. Even his grandfather and father were terrified of him and had to suck up to him. If he killed him, wouldn't it be as easy as crushing an ant? What? That's impossible. Wang Tianhe couldn't believe it. The Guo family has dominated Singapore for so many years. They were even welcomed by the central government of Wuxia. How could he have killed them? Why didn't the government of Singapore do anything about it? That's right. I don't believe it either. Boss Fu felt that he was about to lose the famous painting, so he grumbled. Even the rich people found it hard to believe. Master Kang's identity had changed a lot. One moment he was a crazy rich kid. Then he was the prince of the Jiang family. Then he was the Master Kong of Jin City. Then he was the martial arts consultant of Battle Dragon. Now he was the CEO of the Guo family group and the state preceptor of Singapore. The Guo family was one of the 4 most powerful families in Singapore. They had hundreds of billions of XINU dollars in assets. Even the Yap family and the Wang family combined couldn't compare to them. However, Jiang Tian was so young, yet he was able to control so much wealth. It was unbelievable. Most importantly, he was still fine after killing the entire Guo family. Furthermore, he was even appointed as the state preceptor by the Singaporean government. This was even more miraculous. This is the truth of the martial arts world. Only the strong are respected. The weak are like ants. Han Yener smiled and said, Master Kong also killed the Guo family's backer Wang Chongyan, and became the most powerful overlord in Singapore and the entire Southeast Asia. A few days ago, Prime Minister Li Xianlong saw him become the state preceptor of Singapore. Maybe you don't know what it means to be the top grandmaster on the divine roll. You must have heard of Yi Wudao, right? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone became solemn. Even Yi Cheetah had a serious expression on his face. The Yi family of Zhejiang province was a family that had been famous for 100 years. They were known as the Yi family of Jiangnan. Yi Wudao was the head of a martial arts family. His prestige shook the entire Yangtze River Delta and he controlled hundreds of billions of assets. Like an arbitrator, he ruled the world and whipped the heroes. Even the millionaires on the Forbes list had to look up to him and try to befriend him. Everyone in the room knew about him and they were afraid of him. Han Yener said proudly, on the long formation divine roll, Yi Wudao is ranked 6th and Master Kong is ranked 1st. Don't you know what it means? As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. They didn't know who the top grandmaster on the divine roll was before. But now they finally understood. Yi Wudao had dominated the Yangtze River Delta for decades. Even the Yi Cheetah family had to avoid him. Even Leaf Dao Denier was shocked by the words Grandmaster Jiang. It went without saying how important they were. At this moment, there were many people who were looking at Jiang Tian with horrified expressions. Many people were shaken, not daring to face him head-on. Even Yi Haochen was speechless. Jiang Tian's power was beyond his imagination. The prince of the Jiang family, the Guo family, the imperial preceptor of Xingzhou and the top grandmaster on the divine roll, each of these identities was more terrifying than the last. Moreover, any one of these identities was not something he could compare to. Even the Yi Cheetah family had to be wary of them and treat them with caution. He's just a nobody after all. Wuxia is a country where the people are the masters. Yi Cheetah's right hand trembled as he sneered. In fact, he was already scared out of his wits. However, he had been renowned for many years and possessed great prestige. How could he possibly lower his head and admit defeat to a junior? Meanwhile, Li Xianlong looked at the boarding gate and said, Everyone, the special envoy of Wuxia, Secretary Shen, is on his way. What? Secretary Shen is coming? The entire place was in an uproar and it was boiling with excitement. The battle formation was unprecedentedly vast and everyone was shocked. Secretary Shen was the personal secretary of the central government's chief. He was the special envoy of the Red Nation. Sure enough, accompanied by 2 bodyguards in black and a few Chinese officials, Secretary Shen, who was wearing a white shirt, walked over quickly. Yi Cheetah hurried over and held Secretary Shen's hand tightly. He said excitedly, Secretary Shen, why are you here? Oh, the chief attached great importance to the construction of the free trade zone. He asked me to come and take a look. Secretary Shen only held Yi Cheetah's hand with one hand. His expression was reserved, without the slightest hint of a smile. But everyone thought it was natural. Secretary Shen didn't have a high administrative rank, but he was the chief's personal secretary. He was highly regarded by the chief. Yu Weihao, Wang Tianhe, Director Liu and the others also hurried over to shake hands. But Secretary Shen turned a blind eye to them. Instead, he walked quickly to Jiang Tian, grabbed Jiang Tian's big hand with both hands, shook it fiercely and said with enthusiasm, I heard that Master Kong was crowned the Grand Preceptor of Singapore and the President of the Chinese Society. I congratulate you on behalf of the central government. What? Secretary Shen, you know Master Kong? Many people exclaimed. Yu Weihao, Yi Haochen, Wang Tianhe and the others were even more shocked. Of course, the central government's leaders often mention Master Kang's name. Secretary Shen said solemnly, They say that having Master Kong in Wuxia is the fortune of the people, the nation and the country. The chief even said that Master Kong is a hero of the nation and a good general of the country. His words were like a hammer strike. Everyone was shocked and no one dared to say a word. "You flatter me, chief," Zhang Tian replied faintly. Zhang Tian knew the power of the Grand Preceptor of Singapore and the President of the Chinese Society. They were the emperors of Southeast Asia. Their words and actions could influence the national policy and the attitude of the people toward Wuxia. The central government's leaders must have realized that having a good relationship with him could eliminate conflicts and promote cooperation and development with the Southeast Asian countries. However, even though Zhang Tian was crowned the Grand Preceptor of Singapore, he still had to be careful when facing Wuxia, a powerful country with a thriving economy, a large population, advanced nuclear weapons and a powerful army. "You are right." Secretary Shen tightened his grip on Zhang Tian's left hand and patted Zhang Tian's big hand with his right hand. He was full of praise. Grandmaster Zhang's invention of many medicines is of great significance to the development of China's military logistics. In the battle on Mount Everest, he protected the dignity of the country and its people. In Jinling, he massacred many strong people from the Dark World. Then, in Singapore, he destroyed the big conspiracy of the Blue Cloth Society that was unfavorable to China. He is ranked third in the world's strong list by the CIA. If this is not a hero, then what is? Secretary Shen was a favorite of the chief. He had access to all kinds of secrets. It could be said that Wuxia was almost transparent to him. The information he had access to was far beyond the level of Wang Tianhe, Yi Weihao and Secretary Fan. Even Yi Qida was far behind. He was only proficient in the field of economics. "What is the strong ranking?" Yi Haochen asked, his voice full of shock and unwillingness. When the chief's comments were conveyed, everyone present kept their mouths shut and remained silent. Even the secretaries of Yi Qida, Yi Weihao and Secretary Fan did not dare to question it. After all, this was the verdict of the higher-ups. It was too heavy. Presumptuously criticizing the central government was a serious crime. You would be stripped of your crown and beaten to a prisoner. However, Yi Haochen originally thought that he could control Zhang Tian with a scheme. However, Zhang Tian actually turned the tables in such a beautiful way. He was too aggrieved and could not accept it. A hint of impatience flashed in the depths of Secretary Shen's eyes. However, he still said calmly, "With your level, you are not qualified to come into contact with such core secrets. I only need to tell you that the top 3 or even the top 10 are existences that the major countries of the world are not willing to provoke. Their influence in the world is comparable to that of a small country's leader." The moment he said this, the whole place fell into dead silence. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was flabbergasted. They were so shocked that they could not say a word. Chapter 337. The Yi family was one of the top families in Zhonghai, but they didn't even have the right to know about the power rankings. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the power rankings was and how powerful Zhang Tian was. Yi Haochen sensed Secretary Shen's arrogance. Flames of anger rose in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. Secretary Shen was too important. He was the red envoy of the central government. Even Dad and Grandpa had to be respectful to him. How could Yi Haochen fight back? After all, Secretary Shen represented the central government. His words were the central government's mouthpiece. Whoever dared to disrespect Secretary Shen was disrespecting the central government's authority. It was a capital offense. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at the calm Zhang Tian. A deep sense of sorrow and regret rose in his heart. He had thought that Zhang Tian was just a country bumpkin. How could he compare with him in terms of wealth? But now he realized that just like what Zhao Xueqing said, he alone is the most powerful family in the world. Zhang Tian had already gained the upper hand. Yi Weihao, Wang Tianhe, and the others felt like 10,000 alpacas were galloping in their hearts. Who would have thought that Zhang Tian could achieve so much at such a young age? Secretary Liu of Su Province was sweating profusely. After the call with Secretary Fan asked him to apologize to Zhang Tian immediately. But the question was, would Zhang Tian still accept the apology? Boss Fu, Boss Zhang and the other tycoons of Zhonghai were all dumbfounded. Today's battle was full of twists and turns. Zhang Tian had turned the tables. In the end, Secretary Shen made the final decision. The Yi family of Zhonghai, the Wang family and the He family of Xingzhou lost everything. No matter how powerful the Yi family of Zhonghai was, how could they be an enemy of the central government? They were digging their own graves. Boss Fu, hurry up and give me that bamboo and stone painting of Jing Banqiao. Boss Zhang laughed proudly. Fine, fine, fine. I'll give it to you. I lost 5 million but I got to watch today's show. It's not a loss. Boss Fu laughed. Boss Zhang's face suddenly turned cold. The show isn't over yet. I heard that Master Kong has the heart of an ambitious and ruthless person. Today the Yi family won't have a good ending. Even Zhonghai is going to change. As expected, Jiang Tian's counterattack soon began. He first looked at Wang Tianhe and sneered, Wang Tianhe, I broke your son's limbs. Do you still want to sue me? Wang Tianhe's body trembled and his face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Cold sweat poured out from his forehead. Mr. Jiang, what's going on? Secretary Shen frowned and asked in a deep voice. Jiang Tian didn't want to waste time talking, so Han Yen went up and told him what had happened. When Secretary Shen heard this, his face immediately turned gloomy. He said sternly, Mr. Wang, do you know the crime of insulting and offending a National Hero Medal recipient? I'm afraid even Wang Pingjiang wouldn't be able to withstand it. Wang Tianhe couldn't hold it in anymore. Jiang Tian was now highly regarded by the central government. If he offended Jiang Tian, not even 100 Wang family members would be able to stop him. He bowed deeply and said with a trembling voice, Mr. Jiang, I apologize to you on behalf of my son. It's the Wang family's fault for not teaching him well and offending Mr. Jiang. Please show mercy and forgive us. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and didn't say anything. Wang Tianhe's heart skipped a beat. Master Kong clearly didn't want to let him and the Wang family off the hook. When he thought about Jiang Tian's bloody massacre of the Nia family, his knees buckled. He knelt down and kowtowed. Master Kong, it is our fault for not recognizing you. Please forgive us, Master Kong. At that moment everyone was stunned. A dead silence fell over the room. Everyone was flabbergasted. They couldn't utter a single syllable. Wang Tianhe, the family lord of Zhonghai Wang family, a lawyer and a billionaire in charge of tens of billions of assets, had knelt before Jiang Tian and begged for forgiveness. It wasn't hard to explain why Jiang Tian wasn't afraid of Yi Qida. The Yi family was indeed more powerful than the Wang family, but only by an order of magnitude. What about you? He Junyi. Do you still want to drive me out of Singapore? Jiang Tian looked at He Junyi and asked coldly. He Junyi's face stiffened. He didn't want to kneel down, but he still hadn't figured out how to defend himself. Provoking and threatening me again and again, you must be tired of living. Jiang Tian had already exhaled and spoke. An enormous pressure descended from the sky. Crack. He Junyi was pressed to the ground like a toad. He couldn't even lift his head. Master Kong, please forgive me. I won't do it again. He Junyi wagged his tail and begged for mercy. His face was covered in tears and snot. He was so scared that he peed in his pants. Go to hell. Jiang Tian sneered. He swatted at He Junyi as if he was swatting a fly. Crack. He Junyi was smashed into a pile of meat paste. His body was twisted like a piece of paper on the ground. Blood and broken bones scattered in all directions. The crowd was dead silent. Everyone's hair stood on end. They felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. No one had expected Jiang Tian to kill He Junyi. He Junyi was one of the most powerful young masters in Singapore. He was even more powerful than Guo Chongqing. However, when they thought about how Jiang Tian had destroyed the Guo family and was the Grand Preceptor of Singapore, they felt that it was only natural. Grand Preceptor Jiang, you have killed the evildoer and saved the people from harm. We admire you greatly. As expected, Li Xianlong didn't question Jiang Tian's words. He led the Singaporean officials and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian. Arg. Han Yen stood behind Jiang Tian. Her body trembled and her heart almost stopped beating. However, in the next second her eyes lit up. She had never thought that the Grand Preceptor of Singapore, an overlord on the dark role, would be so powerful. She knew that she had made the right bet. She had placed all her bets on the Grand Preceptor of Singapore. She would be able to do whatever she wanted in Singapore. On the other hand, Li Xianlong stood up and looked at Yi Qida and the others with resentment and hostility. He said solemnly, Mr. Yi, the delegation from Zhonghai has offended the state preceptor of Singapore and humiliated the national pride of Singapore. The government of Singapore would like to express our strong protest and dissatisfaction. The free trade zone between Singapore and Zhonghai is hereby voided and will never be mentioned again. But the agreement has already been signed. How can it be null and void? Yichida couldn't believe it. The establishment of the free trade zone was not only the result of his theory, but also the achievement of his son Yi Weihao. For this political achievement, the Yi family could be said to have racked their brains and worked hard. After a year and 4 months of extremely difficult negotiations, they finally reached a cooperation framework. But now the agreement had been nullified. His son was no longer a hero but a sinner. His promotion to the central government was all for naught. He knew that all of this was because of Jiang Tian, but now that he had to lower his head and beg Jiang Tian for mercy, he really couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. Thinking of this, his heart was burning with anxiety. He looked at Secretary Shen, wanting him to speak up for him. However, Secretary Shen only lowered his head and looked at the deck as if there were ants fighting on the deck. Seeing this, Yichida's heart sank. He understood what Secretary Shen meant. Right now, Secretary Shen didn't have the ability to persuade Jiang Tian. He could only rely on Jiang Tian. It could be said that in the eyes of the Wuxia higher-ups, Jiang Tian's importance far surpassed the Yi family, the Wang family, and so on. With that thought in mind, Yichida smiled sadly, shook his head and sighed. Forget it, forget it. The old man has seen the glory of a peerless scholar today. It's the old man who can't see the real person's face. Master Kong, please spare the old man's life on account of the fact that he only has one grandson. He bowed deeply to Jiang Tian with his fists clasped, and 2 lines of bitter and humiliating tears flowed down his cheeks. Elder Yi. In an instant, countless people cried out involuntarily, and they were filled with the sorrow of a fox mourning the death of a rabbit. Compared to a super powerhouse like Jiang Tian, what great authority! What great wealth! They were not even worth mentioning. Grandpa! Yi Haochen's eyes were red and he wanted to rush forward and fight Jiang Tian. Ignorant child, do you want to anger me to death? Why haven't you kneeled down to Grandmaster Jiang yet? Yichida's entire body trembled as he berated furiously. Yi Haochen's body stiffened and his face kept changing. It was red, then purple, and finally turned pale. He bent his knees, knelt, and lowered his arrogant head. With a trembling voice he said, Grandmaster Jiang, I was wrong. The entire deck was dead silent. Even the sound of a needle dropping could be heard. In a blink of an eye, in everyone's eyes. The brightly lit skyscrapers in the distance, the night view of the strait nearby, the background of the entire world blurred, faded, and eventually disappeared without a trace. Only the figure standing proudly on the deck was left, almost like an immortal god. Immediately, the delegation from Zhonghai left the cruise ship. Although Singapore didn't send out an eviction order out of courtesy, they knew that they were not welcome. Only Han Yener and Mai Shilong were allowed to stay in Zhonghai. Then they saw Tang Weiman and the elites of Yangqing City appear on the deck. They were talking and laughing with Li Xianlong and the other officials of Singapore and Jiang Tian. People like Bai Choufei, Tai Ming Huang, Tang Shaozi, and even their fathers were there. Before they had been suppressed by Yi Haochen and the others, but now they could hold their heads up high. They also worshipped Jiang Tian. In their eyes, Jiang Tian was even more powerful than them and he was like a god. The Grand Preceptor of Singapore, the reigning champion of Singapore, had suppressed all the tycoons of Zhonghai. How powerful was he? The free trade zone between Singapore and Wuxia will be built in Yangqing City. We will exempt all tariffs. Li Xianlong shook Tang Weiman's hand and said with a warm smile. Thank you, Premier Li. Let's work together and contribute to the economic development of both countries. Tang Weiman said with a smile. No, no, no. Secretary Tang, you are too polite. Any friend of Master Kong is a friend of Singapore. Li Xianlong said with a serious face. Chapter 338. The music started again and the lights shone brightly. The cooperation between Singapore and Wuxia had opened a new chapter. Yichida heard everything from afar. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Luckily he didn't fall to the ground. Many of the Zhonghai tycoons kept a distance from the Yi family, as if they were afraid of being seen by Jiang Tian. These people were all shrewd people. They knew that after this incident the Yi family's political future was basically over. They might even be uprooted by Jiang Tian. Idiot. Back in the hotel room, Yi Weihao slapped Yi Haochen in the face. He gritted his teeth, his face full of anger and sorrow. Yi Haochen staggered from the slap. Blood spurted out of his nostrils. His face was red and a few fingerprints appeared on it. Dad, I know I was wrong. Yi Haochen's eyes were filled with fear. He covered his face and lowered his head. I told you to be careful when you came to Singapore, especially not to mess around. But you didn't listen. Yi Weihao was so angry that he clutched his chest. His face twisted in pain as he gasped for air. If you had remembered my words before you started this, you wouldn't have caused so much trouble. You wouldn't have put a knife in someone else's hand and stabbed your grandfather in the chest. When will you grow some brains? Dad, don't worry. I was wrong, okay? Yi Haochen panicked when he saw that his father was about to have a heart attack. He quickly took out some medicine for his father and comforted him. Whatever you say, I'll listen to you. Yi Weihao calmed himself down and waited for the pain in his head to pass. Then he relaxed his brows and said to his son earnestly, will you be satisfied and happy when you see your father's position taken away by someone else? Do you think that your grandfather and your father are really willing to run in front of a little bastard who hasn't even grown out his hair yet and speak in a humble manner? You have to understand that the situation is more important than the person. Dad, I understand. But you have to remember, no matter what you encounter in the future, don't make a big deal out of it. Don't worry about Zhiqing investment for the time being. The central government has repeatedly asked the children of party and government officials to be strictly prohibited from doing business. At least on the surface, you have to break away from Zhiqing investment. I think you shouldn't stay in Zhonghai for the time being. Don't even think about staying in Singapore. With him here you can't do anything. I won't mess around anymore, okay? Yi Haochen panicked when he heard that he was going to be kicked out of Zhonghai. He begged for mercy. I won't care about the company anymore. I'll stay at home. You, Yi Weihao said with a heavy heart. I wouldn't allow you to leave Zhonghai unless I had no other choice. But Special Envoy Shen didn't even inform me that Yangqing is going to take over the construction of the free trade zone. Do you know what this means? Yi Haochen wasn't completely clueless. Born in a family of officials, he had been exposed to all kinds of scheming people since he was young. Could even be said that he was very smart. The reason why he fell into the pit today was because he was used to being a tyrant in Zhonghai and was slapped in the face by Jiang Tian. His brain was filled with anger and there was a blind spot in his vision. This was the reason why he could think calmly. The central government is so disappointed in us that no one is willing or has the guts to leak the news to us. Yi Weihao knew that nothing else mattered. The most fatal thing was losing the trust of the higher-ups. This meant that the Yi family would be hated by everyone in the future. No one would help them. I want you to leave Zhonghai. Not to go anywhere else but to Yanjing. After you arrive in Yanjing, don't cause any more trouble for me. But you have to be willing to spend money. No matter how much money you have to be willing to spend it. Millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, throw it all out. Don't be sad. I don't think I need to teach you how to spend money and who to spend it on, right? The more money you spend in Yanjing, the more we can take back the initiative. I understand. Yi Haochen nodded with a gloomy face. His heart was abnormally heavy. It's good that you understand. Hurry up and leave. Yi Weihao closed his eyes tiredly and waved his hand, telling his son to return home. Secretary Shen, thank you for coming. In the banquet hall on the top floor of the cruise ship, Jiang Tian raised his glass to Secretary Shen. He looked down at the waves of the Malacca Strait. It's my duty. Secretary Shen smiled politely. However, Secretary Shen's understanding of me is beyond my imagination. Jiang Tian smiled. It's not strange at all. Other than being the special envoy and secretary of the Great Chief, I have another identity. What? Shen Mange is my sister. So that's how it is. That's not strange. Jiang Tian said with a smile. I propose a toast to Mr. Jiang on behalf of the Great Chief. I hope that Master Kong can continue to guard Wuxia and make new contributions to the friendship between Singapore and Wuxia. Secretary Shen raised his glass and smiled. Definitely. Jiang Tian drank the red wine in his glass in one gulp. When the dust of the Princess Jenny's incident had settled down, The dark world was in an uproar as soon as the news of the great changes in Singapore spread. Kong Teichu killed Wang Chongyan and Wei Mian of the Chinese Society of Singapore and took control of the Chinese society. As soon as this news appeared, it swept across the dark world like a hurricane. Many experts were shocked. Wang Chongyan. His status was too special. He was a grandmaster who had been famous since the Republic of China. He was Commander Dai's right-hand man and was in charge of the Blue Cloth Society. Back in Zhonghai he was on par with Du Yuexing and Huang Jinrong. He was a dual cultivator of martial arts and Dharma spells. He was of the same generation as Yi Tianren. He had fought with Yi Tianren many years ago. The Chinese Society of Singapore was even more powerful than the Chinese Society of Singapore. It had a longer history than the Chinese Society of Singapore. It had many transcendent grandmasters and Dharma enlightening spellcasters. It also had an alliance with the Nanyang Dark Art Masters. Back then it was rumored that after the Singapore Chinese Society was integrated, it would be on par with the Pantheon, Blue Storm, Winter Soldier and Cherry Blossom Society, all of which had superpowers backing them. Who would have thought that just as the stage was built, Jiang Taichu smashed it into smithereens before she could even sing a single line. It was a shocking development. Kong Teichu is too powerful. This is simply invincible, advancing triumphantly all the way. Some overlords exclaimed in disbelief. They couldn't believe that the words on the computer screen were real. Yeah, Kong Teichu is too powerful. It's simply a bloodbath, a mad slaughter. I wasn't convinced when the CIA ranked him as the third most powerful man on the dark roll. But now I am convinced. He's so powerful. Kong Teichu is invincible. 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 From now on I am going to be Kong Teichu's die-hard fan. Shock, excitement, admiration and reverence. But no one dared to doubt the authenticity of the news because it was posted by the Observer. Then more details were revealed. Jiang Taichu had killed his way into the Guo family in Singapore and suppressed hundreds of police officers. Then he went straight to the headquarters of the Chinese Society in Singapore and massacred them. Jiang Taichu is truly the most stunning expert of the present age. It can be said that in the past half a century, there hasn't been such a powerful figure before. Someone recalled history feeling even more reverence for Jiang Tian. Ever since the advent of nuclear weapons, the immortal state warriors had gone into hiding. Assassinations of politicians and tycoons still existed, but they were done in secret. No one dared to go against the government in broad daylight. Even if it was a small country, it still made people wary. No matter how strong you are, how many nails can you crush if your whole body is made of iron? However, Kong Teichu was not one of them. Not only did he kill many Singapore police officers, but he also suppressed the Guo family and suppressed the Singapore Chinese Society. He was even able to defend his title as the state preceptor. This was simply too shocking. Kong Teichu is not someone to be trifled with. Someone said with a grave face. The Chinese Society of Singapore was suppressed because of the battle on Mount Everest. But in that battle, Jiang Taichu clearly had the upper hand and obtained a complete victory. This is the demeanor of an expert. When Jiang Taichu is angered, millions of corpses will fall and blood will dye 10,000 li. An expert deeply agreed and sighed with great alarm. Yeah. That's terrifying. Jiang Taichu is someone who will definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If he has a grudge, he will not let it pass. I think no overlord would dare to cause trouble in Singapore or Southeast Asia from now on. This is Kong Teichu's territory. Many experts agreed in their hearts and decided to withdraw their forces from Singapore and Southeast Asia immediately. Even if they didn't withdraw, they had to contact the Chinese Society of Singapore and express their goodwill to Kong Teichu. What is Kong Teichu's level of cultivation now? I think he is at least half a step away from immortal state. Someone asked. As soon as these words were spoken, all the experts went silent, and they felt horrified and uneasy. Could it be that Kong Teichu was really half a step away from immortal state? Many people were speechless and found it hard to believe. Kong Teichu is most likely half a step away from immortal state. Wang Zhongyan had reached the phenomenal success of the transcendent state during the Republic of China. He had dominated Southeast Asia for decades and had fused the dark arts with Wuxia's martial arts. If he hadn't reached the peak of transcendent state or half a step away from immortal state, then he would have wasted his time. If Kang Teichu could kill him with ease, then what could he be if not half a step away from immortal state? In the end, the observer replied. The post sent chills down the spines of all the overlords sitting behind the computer screen. Half a step away from immortal state. Immortal state was the pinnacle of the world. There might not be one immortal state master in 10 million people. To enter the deity realm, not only did one need to be extremely talented, one also needed to be extremely lucky. Ordinary people would find it difficult to reach immortal state or even martial arts. Take Wuxia's martial arts system as an example. 1 in 10,000 people could enter martial arts. 1 in 100,000 could become an internal force master, and 1 in a million could become a transcendent grandmaster. 1 in 10 million or even 1 in 100 million could reach immortal state. The difficulty of reaching immortal state was even greater than ascending to heaven. Immortal state. Immortal state was an elusive existence. After the advent of nuclear weapons, there were no more legends about immortal state. Even if he was a half-god, he was still a terrifying existence. He was able to command the law with his words, move mountains and fill seas with a wave of his sleeves, and destroy the heavens and the earth with his rage. He was a true powerhouse who could wield many secret arts and martial techniques at his fingertips. Kang Teichu controls the Singapore Wuxia Association. Together with his influence in Wuxia, he already has the power to compete with the Winter Soldiers, Blue Storm, Pantheon Temple, Cherry Blossom Society and other top organizations in the world. Moreover, I suspect that this is only the first step in Kang Teichu's journey to international domination. This is definitely not the end. Then the observer made such a profound deduction that stunned everyone. Was Kang Teichu going to dominate the world by himself? Chapter 339. The discussion on the dark web was still going on, but Jiang Tian was very relaxed and carefree during this time. Every day he teased Jiang Wan-er and watched her pouting pitifully. Then he and Qing-er took a cruise ship to the high seas to fish, surf and sunbathe. They traveled all over Southeast Asia hand in hand. His life was so good that he was like a living immortal. Every time he visited a country or city, there were local government officials and rich people who wanted to see him. They wanted to curry favor with the newly promoted Grand Preceptor of Singapore. Jiang Tian also depended on his mood. He would meet some and ignore some. During this period of time, under the mediation of Paris Hilton, Liu Zhou and the others, the Hilton family of America joined forces with the DuPont Foundation, the Rockefeller family, the Rothschild family, the Morgan family and many other super families, as well as many Wall Street funds and investment companies to acquire 90% of the Guo family's assets. The Guo family's assets totaled more than 200 billion XAN new dollars, which was equivalent to 1 trillion Wuxia dollars. There was still some left over. Even the Hilton family, which was one of the top 10 richest families in America, found it difficult to swallow it all. After all, most of these large corporations existed in the form of fixed assets. No one had that much cash in their accounts. This was a cross-border merger that shocked the world. It was also the largest mega merger in the new century. The world was in an uproar. Financial observers around the world were shocked. Industry researchers around the world were shocked. For a week, the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, The Times and many other media outlets reported and analyzed. The news was always on the front page. Jiang Tian only kept the Guo family's mansion and 10% of the Guo family's assets. As for Guo Lily, Jiang Tian did not give her a single cent of the shares. He only allowed her to keep her position as a vice president and let her help maintain the relationship with the management team and stabilize the situation. Jiang Tian was already benevolent enough not to kill her. 1 trillion. What kind of concept was that? Wealth comparable to a country. Even if it was a few years later, even after 2018, Jiang Tian would still be the richest man in Wuxia. After the new century, there were some red dignitaries who used insurance holding companies as a platform and leveraged their holdings. Indeed, Anbang, Guoshi, Penggu and several other megacorporations with a scale of more than 1 trillion. However, these companies were all highly indebted. Although the method of debt was different and the complicated equity structure was like a super maze, it was still using other people's money. However, Jiang Tian's assets were all solid gold and silver, his net worth. Not to mention their net worth, even if they were to include their debts, It would be difficult for these powerful people with red backgrounds to catch up to Zhang Tian. 1 trillion is so easy to get. Feels so good to rob money. Zhang Tian converted all the money into dollars and deposited it in a Swiss bank account. Zhang Tian was a simple and hardworking person. To him, money was just a worldly possession. He had no use for it in the short term. Although Zhang Tian had a good relationship with Wuxia officials, who knew when they would fall out? Lantern Festival, Hilton Hotel. Why did Zhang Tian ask us to come here? He won't kill us, right? Yang Wenluan and Li Xinyue, who had been contacted by the Singapore police, stood outside a private room in the F&B department, trembling uneasily. For the past few days, whenever they thought of how Zhang Tian had slaughtered everyone in the Guo family, the two of them would have cramps in their stomachs and could not eat or sleep in peace. Yang Wenluan had not dared to leave. He had also tried to contact Zhang Tian, but Zhang Tian's door was heavily guarded. They could not enter at all. However, they did not expect Zhang Tian to take the initiative to look for them today. The door opened and a girl with a particularly ethereal appearance said softly, "Come in, both of you." The two of them hurried in and saw Zhang Tian sitting facing the door eating. Beside him were a few men and women with extraordinary auras. Guo Lily was sitting at the end of the table. Zhang Tian looked up at the two of them and smiled amiably. "Have you eaten? If not, let's eat together." Yang Wenluan wanted to kneel on the spot, but he did not dare to sit down. He stood there trembling and said in a trembling voice, "Zhang Tian, I know I was wrong. Please spare my life, don't kill me." "It's fine. The reason I called you here is to tell you something. Don't talk nonsense about me in your circle of classmates." Zhang Tian said calmly. "No problem, I won't say a word." "Yeah, we won't say a word even if you beat us to death." Yang Wenluan and Li Xinyue immediately swore. "Then you guys can go." Zhang Tian waved his hand. Yang Wenluan and Li Xinyue were not evil people, so there was no need to do anything to them. There was a reason why Yang Wenluan had repeatedly mocked him and even tried to harm him. After all, he had been quite a jerk at that time. He had slept with the goddess and even sent a video to her. Although Li Xinyue had tried to cooperate with the Guo family to harm him, she regretted it at the last moment. She reminded Zhang Tian and even wanted to plead for Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian understood that it was not easy for a woman to make a living in a big city. Why would he be calculative with a woman? Oh right. Just as the two of them were about to leave, Guo Lily turned around and smiled sweetly. "Little Yang, your family's contract is still valid. Good luck, you're working for Master Kong." "Thank you, Jiang Master Kong. I will never forget your kindness." Yang Wenluan was respectful, fearful and touched. Hot tears rolled down his cheeks. After the two of them said goodbye, they walked silently in the corridor with a myriad of thoughts in their minds. Suddenly, Li Xinyue said in a trembling voice, "Young Master Yang, we missed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If I'm not wrong, the person beside Zhang Tian is the Prime Minister of Singapore, Li Xianlong?" "I understand." Yang Wenluan smiled bitterly. "But you have to know that he's the dragon god. No matter how hard we work, we won't be able to get close to him." He asked Guo Lily to continue with the contract probably because he felt bad about cheating on me back then. "I'm really grateful that Master Kong cheated on you back then. Otherwise we wouldn't be alive right now." Li Xinyue nodded in agreement. "This is how the dragon taming formation should be set up. Do you understand now?" Half a month later, in the dragon taming mountain mansion, Zhang Tian pointed at the blueprint and asked Qinger with a smile. Even though Zhang Tian was famous in Southeast Asia, he still had too many enemies such as the Great Circle, the Sakura Society and the Yamaguchi-gumi. Zhang Tian planned to cultivate the Golden Gung divine body in Swirling Island as soon as possible. Then he would destroy the Great Circle and the Sakura Society. On one hand, he was eager to return to Swirling Island to cultivate. On the other hand, he wanted Qinger to master the art of formations. Formations were too important to a cultivator. It could be used for both defense and offense, greatly increasing a cultivator's strength. Especially on Earth where spiritual qi was scarce, it was necessary to be able to set up a spirit-gathering formation all the time. However, Qinger was indeed smart. She could understand the mysteries of formations with just a hint. She could even come up with new ways to improve and innovate. One should know that Southern sect Feng Shui Xian masters like Enlightened Master Hong Yi and Su Wenjie were often confused by these complicated formations. They felt dizzy and could not take it anymore. Understood. Qing'er nodded and turned to look at Shen Mange, Enlightened Master Hongyi, Su Wenjia and the rest. She smiled and said, "Everyone, please follow me to set up the formation." Yes. Everyone bowed and followed Qing'er out of the mansion. They went to various parts of the dragon taming mountain and got busy. It's not cold when the wind blows. Jiang Tian walked out of the door with his hands behind his back. He stretched lazily and revealed a calm smile. The spring sun was bright and beautiful and the breeze was gentle. The snow melted and the mountains and rivers were clear. The willow trees sprouted and tender green sprouts appeared on the branches. The flat fields of herbs swayed with the wind. It was as if a layer of green carpet had been draped over the mountains. The fragrance of the herbs was refreshing and soothing. This winchim grass is growing pretty fast. Jiang Tian came to a nursery in the mountains and nodded in satisfaction. He picked up a bottle of spiritual liquid and watered it. The winchim grass had been planted for half a month. It had already grown to 5 to 6 centimeters tall. The bell-shaped leaves swayed gently in the air, emitting a faint fragrance. The dragon taming mountain was not only set up with a formation, but it was also an important production base for the Medicine King group. The formation gathered the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to help the herbs absorb and grow. At the same time, the herbs would also emit medicinal spiritual qi, which would be absorbed and used by the formation again. "Professor Jiang, what kind of herb is this? I've never seen it before." Suddenly, a timid voice came from behind him. Hearing this voice, Jiang Tian's body stiffened. He slowly got up and turned around. Huang Linger had her hair tied up in a bun. Her white coat wrapped around her slender and graceful body. She was like a graceful magnolia in the spring breeze. Her big, watery eyes were staring at him eagerly. After not seeing her for a few months, her skin looked even clearer. Her eyes were as clear as water without a speck of dust. "Oh, this is called winchim grass. It's the most important herb in this courtyard," Jiang Tian answered vaguely. Then he asked in surprise, "Who told you to come here, Yi Ziwei?" Huang Linger lowered her eyes timidly and looked at her feet. She said softly, "No, it was Sister Qing'er. She said I know about herbs and asked me to be in charge of this production base. Actually, I know that my pharmaceutical skills aren't outstanding." She raised her eyebrows and looked at Jiang Tian with her watery eyes. She anxiously said, "Professor Jiang, I know that I'm not qualified, but I can study hard." "Oh, I see." Jiang Tian felt strange. He placed his hands behind his back and walked over to Zhao Xueqing. "Qing'er, why did you call her over?" Jiang Tian pulled Zhao Xueqing to the side and asked in a low voice. "Professor Jiang, is there a problem?" Zhao Xueqing wore sportswear. She looked youthful and energetic as she smiled mischievously. "She can't do it." Jiang Tian anxiously said, "These are herbs collected from Shenong School and other places. They're not ordinary herbs. How can she know anything about them?" "Jiang Tian, I already know everything between the two of you." Zhao Xueqing's heart was warm. She held on to Jiang Tian's hand and scratched his palm with her slender fingers. Jiang Tian was shocked. What was she playing at? She scared him to death. Qing'er's eyes, which were as clear as water, rippled with infinite gentleness. She said softly, "I understand your feelings. But don't you think that this is too unfair to Linger?" Chapter 340. Jiang Tian really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He bitterly smiled and said, "Qing'er, is there anyone as generous as you? You're unbelievably virtuous." Zhao Xueqing seriously said, "I'm also a woman. Can even be said that I used to be a woman with a bitter life. I understand her pain and sorrow. You owe her, so I owe her. Damn, I was unrestrained in my previous life. I owed a lot of girls. Even if it wasn't 100, it was at least 80. Jiang Tian helplessly said, "You're pulling them all back? Our house can't fit all of them." "She's different." Zhao Xueqing frowned and firmly said, "Jiang Tian, don't think of me as a petty woman who's jealous. If you think of me like that, I really don't know what's the point of living." Jiang Tian was speechless. He could only be speechless. This girl, is she testing me? Do you admit that if something happens to her, you'll be sad? Zhao Xueqing's eyebrows relaxed and her smile was exceptionally bright. Jiang Tian was speechless. but he understood that his emotions couldn't escape Qing'er's eyes. The prime of life doesn't come again, and I won't be responsible for my lover. Zhao Xueqing held Jiang Tian's big hand tightly. Her gentle eyes looked at Huang Linger, who was pruning the branches and watering the medicine field. She smiled and said, Jiang Tian, I don't want you to regret it one day because of her, and it'll be too late for regrets. So I'll keep her by my side and love her like a sister. I absolutely won't allow anything to happen to her. Qing'e, have you ever thought? Jiang Tian's eyes flickered with a trace of sadness as he softly said, actually, if she can live an ordinary life, it's also a kind of happiness. Strong people like you and me can easily attract unexpected disasters. Is it really a good thing for her to keep her by our side? I've thought about this. But even if you send her away, do you think that no one can find out about your past with her? What's more, she's Professor Huang's daughter. Qing'er held Jiang Tian's hand and smiled. It's not that you don't love her. You're afraid and worried. But this love and worry is the reason and motivation for us to become stronger. I won't force you to accept her. Just treat her as a younger sister and a disciple. Take care of her and don't have any regrets. She squeezed Jiang Tian's hand and tightened it again. In a soft but firm voice she said, so hubby, let's work hard together. Protect these people we cherish and let more people smile for us. My wife has the root of wisdom. Jiang Tian suddenly picked up Qing'er and spun her around. He laughed and said, I, Jiang Tian, have a wife like this, what more can I ask for? Alright, I'll go to Saw Island now and rebuild my body. In addition to the gold and wood spiritual core, Jiang Tian also found a gold and wood spiritual vein on Saw Island. It can isolate all matter and energy for a certain period of time. It can even withstand the attack of nuclear weapons. It is almost immune to normal attacks. The gung metal constitution was said to have 99 divine powers. However, after the body was formed, the specific ones that could be awakened would depend on luck. Wealth, companionship, dharma, and earth were the 4 essentials of cultivation. However, Jiang Tian knew that luck played a huge role as well. In the Outer Realms cultivation world, Jiang Tian had seen some cultivators with extremely good luck. They didn't even need to search hard. Just by being a bystander, heavenly treasures would fall from the sky. Even a meteorite would be a divine metal. One wouldn't even have the courage to be jealous. Moreover, although this gold and wood spiritual core was powerful, it was still too small. Jiang Tian was not sure which divine powers it could awaken. Jiang Tian had been cultivating for 10,000 years and knew hundreds of millions of Dharma incantations. There were more than 10 million Dharma incantations that could reconstruct the body. For example, the Golden Fire Lotus Technique, Lightning Dash Technique, 12 Heavenly Capital Technique, 3 Lives Tao Technique, Stellar Condensation Technique, and Yin-Yang Harmony Balance were all top-notch Dharma incantations. However, these days Jiang Tian had looked through all the Dharma incantations and finally decided to use the Gung Metal Divine Body technique to reconstruct his body. One had to know that many Dharma incantations not only required abundant spirit qi, but also other harsh conditions and materials. However, the Gung Metal Divine Body technique did not require these at all. Its effect was not inferior to other Dharma incantations, and it could make full use of the gold and wood spiritual core. This time he did not bring anyone to protect him. All the forces were left in Jingling to protect the Jiang family. Now that he was the state preceptor of Xingzhou, the fleet around Swirling Island was surrounded by thousands of cannons. Within 20 nautical miles, everything was within the range of the Dharma incantations. If anyone came close, they would be turned into ashes. Who would dare to disturb his seclusion? Sai, if I were to reconstruct the Gung Metal Divine Body, this gold and wood spiritual core could only help me get started. I don't know what kind of Dharma incantations I would be able to awaken. I hope my luck will be better than that little girl Qing'er. A relieved smile appeared on Jiang Tian's face. Yes, whenever he thought of Qing'er, his heart would feel warm and he could not help but want to giggle. The Gung Metal Divine Body was one of the 12 immortal bodies. How many resources would it require to reconstruct it? It was like a bottomless abyss. The gold and wood spiritual core in front of him could barely help him get started. However, even if it could only get started, the Gung Metal Divine Body is already very powerful. Moreover, if I succeed in reconstructing it, I can convert other qi into Gung Metal True Origin, and it will be very powerful. Zhang Tian made up his mind. A trace of determination flashed in his eyes, and he immediately started to refine the spiritual core. Whoosh! He sat down with his legs crossed. One of his hands was up and the other was down. It was as if he was hugging the sun and the moon. The gold and wood spiritual core was floating between his fingers and palms. With the activation of his art of chaos creation, the surging spiritual qi in the spiritual core began to overflow. Wisps of green qi with a hint of gold, flashing with a strange light, emerged from the spiritual core like clouds. The mist seemed to be condensed from countless golden and green water droplets. Each droplet contained a great amount of energy. The most amazing thing was that the gung metal qi, which was mainly used for killing, was perfectly wrapped by the wood qi. Otherwise, a drop of gung metal qi could crush an internal strength expert to death. However, if he could refine it, it would become an endless source of nourishment. It could change his bones and reconstruct his body. The problem of Zhang Tian's innate weak constitution could be easily solved. Boom! When Zhang Tian began to refine the gung metal qi, a drop of gung metal qi suddenly exploded, shrouding the entire thatched cottage in a strange golden light. Zhang Tian was like a Buddha bathed in the golden light. It is indeed extremely pure. I need 2 hours to refine 1 drop. Even if I don't sleep and rest for a day and night, I can only absorb 10 drops. Zhang Tian slowly swallowed the golden light into his body. The gung metal qi was for strengthening and the wood qi was for nourishing. Every inch of his blood vessels, muscles and bones were slowly changing. Zhang Tian could not help but exclaim, "There are tens of thousands of drops of gung metal spiritual liquid in this spiritual core. At this rate of absorption, I'm afraid it will take me 3 years. However, as the gung metal divine body takes shape day by day, the absorption speed will be faster and faster. I'm afraid I can reconstruct it in 3 months." Cultivation had no concept of time. To Zhang Tian, this wasn't torture but enjoyment. He felt extremely comfortable. He could clearly feel the changes and strengthening of his body. He did not eat or drink. After a day, he finally refined all 10 drops of gung metal spiritual liquid. At this time, his skin was covered with a layer of strange golden light. It was flickering as if it was covered with gold powder. The texture was extremely flexible, like flexible metal. He could move freely, but even if he did not activate his protective aura, he could still withstand the bombardment of artillery shells. As time passed, Zhang Tian's body was gradually strengthened. First it was his skin, then his muscles, then his organs, bones and blood vessels. All of them were stained with gold. The vast gung metal qi filled his body, transforming him in the direction of the gung metal divine body. Under the operation of the gung metal divine body technique, even the ordinary vital energy began to turn into gung metal vital energy. Chapter 341. In April 2009, deep in the Daxing'an Mountains, the snow melted and the pine branches were green. At this time, the Battle Dragon Special Forces were standing in a pool of blood. The smell of blood permeated the air, and the trees and rocks were riddled with bullet marks and knife marks. The forest was filled with smoke. Corpses were piled up around them, and there were more than a dozen of them. Blood stained the ground and limbs were scattered everywhere. Most of them were Russian C-class arcanists or even higher. This was the result of their battle. In the past 6 months, they had intercepted the invasion of Russian arcanists 13 times at the cost of losing 3 people. They had made outstanding achievements and had received many verbal commendations from Wuxia's military higher-ups. This time, we seem to have beheaded 3 C-class arcanists and 2 D-class arcanists. T-Rex took out a small silver wine flask and took a sip of the liquor. He grinned and said, "The martial arts taught by Master Kong is really powerful. It used to be difficult for me to kill a C-class arcanist, but now I can kill a D-class arcanist. The Russian Winter Soldier Organization is just so. They can only kneel and beg for mercy when they meet us Battle Dragon." Fox also smiled disdainfully. "Yeah, after all, we are all wearing the treasures given by Master Kong. It's much stronger than any bulletproof vest." T-Rex shook his head and took out his walkie-talkie. "Well, it's time to let the conventional troops come and clean up the battlefield. Don't underestimate the enemy. This is just Xiao Bin's vanguard. It should be said that they are just testing our strength." Qing Tian said in a deep voice. Dong dong dong. Suddenly a sound like tamping suddenly rang out. The ground and trees trembled slightly, and the remaining snow on the branches fell down. Careful. There's a strong one. Tang Linglong was shocked as she looked in the direction of the sound. The sound of footsteps was very dense, as if someone was running quickly. Are you Battle Dragon? A towering figure suddenly appeared on the hillside 50 meters ahead. Beside him was a seductive woman in revealing clothes, high heels, and a bottle of vodka in her hand. She was so drunk that she was in a daze. Ah, you're so proud after killing a few of our failed experiments. His Chinese was rusty, but his laughter was unrestrained and unending. He was like an angry dragon rampaging through the forest, shaking the snow on the trees and causing the birds in the forest to fly away in panic. He had a head of wild, shoulder-length curly hair, a high nose bridge and deep-set eyes. His appearance could be considered handsome, a standard handsome guy in the Caucasus region. However, his body was really terrifying. He was about 1.9 meters tall, but his shoulders were more than 1 meter wide. His 2 arms were abnormally large. When he stood there with his arms hanging down, the tip of his middle finger was almost above his knee. At this time the temperature was still very low, below zero. However, he was only wearing a camouflage vest. Under his steel-green skin were extremely swollen muscles. When he stood there, he gave off the feeling of an indestructible mountain. Andre, Xiao Bin's disciple, one of the 4 great experts of the Winter Soldier Organization. Fox's expression became unprecedentedly serious. Master Qiao wants to return to Wuxia and kill Yi Zhantian. Our goal is the long formation, not weak little worms like you. Back off now. Andre smiled proudly. Xiao Bin and the Winter Soldier Organization are not allowed to step into Wuxia. Those who violate this order will be killed without mercy. Tang Linglong took a step forward and pulled out her battle saber. Her fighting spirit soared to the sky as she shouted. Tisk Tiske, do you want to die? Andre laughed wildly. Suddenly he stared at a big rock next to him. It was a dense granite that weighed at least 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. You're the one who wants to die. Qing Tian was already holding her saber. Like a nimble bird, she leaped forward and attacked. At the same time, the other 2 battle dragons who were at the peak of the iron body level also held their weapons and flanked from the ground. What is he going to do? Fox frowned suspiciously. Andre ignored Qing Tian. Instead, he circled around the rock and nodded satisfactorily. Whoosh. Andre reached out his hand toward the rock. It used to be a rough human hand, but as he waved his hand, it had grown fur and sharp claws. Gotcha. The claws glinted with a cold light. They seemed to have a metallic texture. The claws dug into the granite as if they were tofu. Roar. Andre used his other hand to push against the bottom of the granite. Both of his feet were in a horse stance and he was actually able to forcefully lift the boulder that weighed several tons. Fuck. T-Rex cursed as a hint of seriousness flashed in his eyes. Without the power of the transcendent state, there was no way one could lift such a heavy rock. It was obvious that this was a tough nut to crack. Look. Fox's pupils shrank as her face paled. Andre took a step forward and his shoes burst open. His feet had turned into the furry claws of a wolf. The rock under his feet crumbled and formed a huge pit. The ground trembled as if there was an earthquake. Go. In the blink of an eye, Andre let out a roar and threw the boulder out like a shot put. The granite rock was like a cannonball. It carried the force of 1,000 pounds and whistled through the air toward Qing Tian. Boom. In a split second, Qing Tian used 1,000 pounds fall and dodged the rock by a hair's breadth. The boulder fell behind her and broke the 2 pine trees that needed 2 people to encircle. The boulder then rolled out like a football, causing snow to fly everywhere. So powerful. Qing Tian turned around and saw a terrifying scene. She murmured, "Is that Andre?" A 2-meter-tall werewolf stood in front of her. His blood-red eyes exuded a terrifying murderous aura. Although his face had changed, she could still vaguely see that it was Andre's transformation. Whoosh. Andre's fan-like claws swung down and fiercely smashed Qing Tian's special steel blade into pieces. He broke her neck and sent her flying with a slap. The other 2 war dragons had just raised their guns. but they had forgotten about the charming woman. The woman's delicate body twisted twice like a spirit snake, and her weak and boneless body left behind a few afterimages. Her poisonous fingernails easily cut through the carotid arteries of the two war dragons. Then she flicked her tongue and licked the blood on her fingertips. Andrei pounced on the two corpses and madly vented. He crazily dug out the internal organs of the two war dragons. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Human organs, bones and muscles covered the ground within a radius of 5 meters. Andrei only stopped when the corpses had turned into meat paste. Viper, whose body was already covered in scales, rolled his eyes at Andrei. He frowned and said with dissatisfaction, "Enough, Andrei. They are already dead. Prepare for the next time." Andrei nodded and spat at the remains of the corpses. He viciously cursed, "May God send your souls to hell, damn yellow-skinned monkeys." Kill. Viper shouted. His body was full of fighting spirit. He leaped forward and pounced on Tang Linglong and the others. 10 minutes later, the 18 War Dragons team had all lost their ability to fight and were seriously injured. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's jade talisman, they would have all been killed. These two were too powerful. One was a werewolf and the other was a snake woman. Both of them practiced secret arts and their strength was far beyond the grandmasters of Wuxia. Wuxia, the place where I was born and raised, I am back. At this time, an old man in a plain gray robe and old cloth shoes walked slowly in the snow without leaving a trace. He had white hair and a white beard. He was at least 100 years old. His old face was full of frostbite, but there was a cold light in his eyes and a hint of murderous intent. "Master." Viper and Andrei knelt on the ground respectfully. They cupped their fists and bowed their heads as if they were seeing a god. He was the Grand Master of Wuxia, the peerless Grand Master of Northeast China, Xiao Bin. He was able to defeat Yi Zhantian back in the day. Even Lin Zhenyu was no match for him. He was only defeated by the military's use of firearms. However, according to the intelligence reports, he was expelled from Wuxia and went to the Siberian plateau. Instead of settling down, he cooperated with the Russian Northern Army and founded the Winter Soldiers. Over the past 20 years, he had single-handedly built the Winter Soldiers into a super organization comparable to the Huaxiaolong Formation, Japan's Sakura Society, America's Blue Storm and Europe's Pantheon of Gods. In the past 20 years, he had also received the support of the vast Russian Federation and obtained countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures for cultivation. He was known as the person closest to the immortal state in the martial arts world. There were even rumors that he was half a step away from the immortal state. "Xiaobin, you bastard. You killed the soldiers of Huaxia. How dare you call yourself a descendant of Yan Huang?" Tang Linglong was covered in blood and sat against a tree. She glared at the old man and snorted disdainfully. "Little brat, you don't know what I've been through. You're just talking nonsense." A trace of anger appeared on Xiaobin's face. He looked down at Tang Linglong as if she was an ant and said coldly, "Kneel down and kowtow to me and I'll spare your life. You can kill me but I won't kneel." Tang Linglong was neither servile nor overbearing. She was unafraid of death. "In this world I only kneel to my master." "Little brat, you have a backbone. You have such a cultivation at such a young age. Not bad. No wonder the soldiers of Huaxia always have a backbone." Xiaobin sneered. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. "This is not only because I am a soldier of Huaxia, but also because I am the only disciple of Kong Teichu," Tang Linglong said proudly. "So you are the disciple of Kong Teichu? That's great." Xiaobin was taken aback for a moment. Then he laughed and said, "After I capture you, I can lure Kong Teichu out to fight with me." "What? Didn't you come to Huaxia to challenge Yi Zhantian?" Tang Linglong was shocked. "Yi Zhantian? What's so great about him? If it weren't for the firearms used by the military, he would have been no match for me." Xiaobin sneered and then said coldly, "Kong Teichu, on the other hand, has been on the rise in recent years. He is the #1 on the divine roll in Huaxia, the top 3 on the dark roll and the grand preceptor of Xingzhou. Only by killing him can I regain my glory and become the most powerful man in the world." Chapter 342. Are you going to start a war just to see who's better and who's better than my master on the dark roll? Tang Linglong shouted angrily, You are crazy. You are unreasonable. Other than that, your master also killed someone. That was my only grandson. Is that reason enough? Xiao Bin said with a venomous face. Fu Biao. Are you surprised? His name was Qiao Biao. Xiao Bin sneered. Back then the Qiao family was caught, killed and sentenced by the government. My grandson was lucky enough to escape, but he had to change his name and take his mother's surname. He was a very filial child. He worked hard in Linzhou, Wuxia. He wanted to gather some forces and prepare for my return to Wuxia. I didn't expect that he would be assassinated by Dragon Fifth. His wife and daughter were killed and he could only escape to Russia alone. Under my guidance he recultivated. I didn't expect that he would be killed by Jiang Taichu right after he found Dragon Fifth. With a sorrowful face he smiled bitterly and said, although I'm a highly respected official in Russia and can sit on the same level as the commander of the Northern Army and have the qualifications to talk to the Russian emperor, in the end, I'm just a white-haired man who has to send off his black-haired son, leaving me all alone. Tell me, shouldn't I take revenge? Back then you committed crimes in the Northeast. You bullied men and women and disregarded the country's laws. This is what you deserve. You can't blame anyone, Tang Linglong retorted righteously. What do you know? A martial artist is a transcendent being. The laws of the world are nothing but ants. Xiao Bin looked at Tang Linglong as if he was looking at an idiot. Tang Linglong said coldly, don't make any more mistakes. You are no match for my master. Take her to Jinling City. Xiao Bin didn't care about her. He signaled Viper to take Tang Linglong. Then he smiled and led the two men away. What should we do? Should we report this to our superiors? Fox finally caught his breath and spoke into his walkie-talkie with a look of grief and indignation. Several of their comrades had died and Tang Linglong had been captured. For them it was an unacceptable defeat. Yeah, even if the military finds out, I'm afraid that Master Kong will personally take action this time. Violent Dragon furrowed his brows and said, Tang Linglong isn't an ordinary person. She's Tang Hongtu's niece. Now that she's been captured, the authorities are afraid of harming her. Ordinary firearms are useless. They can only rely on martial artists. Only Master Kong can suppress Xiao Bin. At that moment, this thought appeared in the minds of all the battle dragons. Beijing Chao family residence. It was a simple but elegant study. After receiving the secret report, Chao Shixiang flew into a great rage and slammed the table as he said, this Xiao Bin is so insolent. Kill him. But the commander of Russia's Northern Army, Onanevsky, sent a telegram saying that this is a friendly martial arts competition. He hopes that the military will be tolerant and welcoming and proceed with this fair and just. Beside him, the staff officer said with a solemn face. These bastards, don't they know that Yi Zhantian and Kong Teichu are in Huaxia? Chao Shixiang gritted his teeth and said, after Kong Teichu massacred Jinling, even the Pantheon has expressed their goodwill to the martial arts community of Huaxia. The winter soldiers are overestimating themselves. I think it's time for our martial arts community to go abroad and show them what we're made of. A general said in a deep voice. That's right. Chao Shixiang nodded, his anger gradually subsiding. He smiled and said, Kong Teichu's victory over the Chinese Society of Singapore is very good. Southeast Asia is very peaceful now, isn't it? The commander of the Northern Army sent this telegram because he hopes that we won't use the military. Then let's not use the military. Although Tang Hongtu was anxious about Linglong's capture, he still cared about the overall situation. He said vigorously, that's right, different circles have different rules. 20 years ago we defeated Xiao Bin with heavy weapons, which was indeed very controversial. They said that there was no one in Huaxia who could defeat us in the martial arts world. Well, this time we won't use the military's power. We'll use martial arts to deal with them. Chao Shixiang smiled coldly and said, they don't know the foundation of Huaxia's martial arts. We not only have Yi Zhantian but also Kong Teichu. Wei Feilong, you convey the top's thoughts to Zhantian. This time I want Xiao Bin dead. Don't worry, Elder Chao. This time the martial arts community of Huaxia will not disappoint you. Wei Feilong stood up and said with a serious face. Xiao Bin returned to Huaxia. This piece of news swept across the Huaxia martial arts and cultivation world like a hurricane. It was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. Compared to Kang Teichu or even Yi Zhantian, Qiao Bin was too famous. He became a transcendent grandmaster at the age of 30. 20 years ago he set off a bloodbath in the martial arts world of Wuxia and killed 8 transcendent grandmasters in a row. Even Yi Zhantian, the #1 god of war in the military, was no match for him. In the end, the military sent helicopters and destroyed half of the heaven lake of Mount Pictou to break his body and escape to Russia. Now, after 20 years of cultivation and with the support of the Northern Army of Russia, how powerful had he become? No one knew. They only knew that this time he came to avenge his only grandson, Fu Biao. He pointed his sword at Kang Teichu and crushed the martial arts world of Wuxia that had brought him endless shame and pain. As long as Kang Teichu doesn't show up, I will dominate the martial arts world of Wuxia, Qiao Bin said through the dark web. Then with the company of Viper and Andre, Qiao Bin headed south. He was invincible and defeated enemies with every step he took. He fought with the various clans and forces, causing a storm of blood and great waves. April 20, 2009, Andre fought with Qin Zhou, a Tai Chi master of the Qin family, and defeated him in 3 moves. April 27, Viper challenged Zhang Wendao, the sect master of the 5 tiger-breaking sect. Zhang Wendao lost. May 4, Viper fought with Zhao Yuankuan at the Poyang Water Manor. The battle lasted 3 hours and Zhao Yuankuan was severely injured. May 11, Andre fought with Wei Feilong. Wei Feilong held on for half an hour and was severely injured. In just a month, Andre's name spread across the entire martial arts world of Wuxia. As Qiao Bin's favorite disciple and the werewolf gene, Andre combined the two together and became extremely powerful. He challenged Qiao Bin 19 times and never lost. Zhao Yuankuan and Wei Feilong were both experienced grandmasters who had reached the transcendent state a long time ago. However, Andre still defeated them. The Heavenly Alliance is too weak after all. Without the support of the country, it is only a loose organization. Some people were disappointed. The Heavenly Alliance's battle at the peak of Mount Everest had brought glory to Wuxia's martial arts world. However, how could the overlords of Southeast Asia compare to the overlords of the Winter Soldier Organization? The Winter Soldier Organization had the support of Russia, a superpower in the world. They had access to a vast amount of resources and technology. I'm afraid that the Long Formation is still needed. The Long Formation is the real treasure of the country. Some people turned their attention to the Long Formation base in Yanjin, hoping that the Long Formation would be able to turn the situation around. Then another explosive piece of news came out, shocking a group of people. On May 20th, Andre challenged Black Tortoise, one of the 4 great spirit generals of the Long Formation. It was a draw. Black Tortoise was not far from Yi Zhantian's strength. However, according to the rumors, Andre's strength was no less than Black Tortoise's. No matter how hard Black Tortoise's snake fist attacked, Andre's elbows were like giant axes and his legs were like the wind. Even the Long Formation was defeated? If Andre is already so powerful, how powerful is Qiao Bin now? Maybe he can defeat Yi Zhantian. Many people were shocked and could not believe their eyes. If Qiao Bin kills people in the name of a challenge, it will be a bloodbath. Someone said in fear, Qiao Bin's strength should be far beyond Lin Zhenyu's because the support he has is not something that Lin Zhenyu can match. Lin Zhenyu is just one of the tycoons in the big circle, but Qiao Bin has the support of Russia. Very soon Qiao Bin's true strength was revealed, causing everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. On May 21st, Qiao Bin and his team arrived at Linzhou City. Hu Qingtian intercepted them and severely injured them. Qiao Bin killed Long Wu and Long Gaiyan. This battle shook everyone's hearts, and its influence was no small matter. Hu Qingtian is a grandmaster who has reached the peak of the transcendent state. If Qiao Bin can defeat him so easily, how powerful is he? Is he half a step away from the immortal state? Someone asked curiously. As soon as he said this, no one responded. There was a dreadful silence in silence. The martial arts community of Wuxia was silent. Before this, there were still people who wanted to step on Qiao Bin's body and make a name for themselves. However, after this battle, no one dared to do so anymore. If Qiao Bin was half a step away from the immortal state, no one in Wuxia would be able to stop him, not even Yi Zhantian. On June 1st, Xiaobin went to Jinlin City and defeated Zhou Xian. He occupied the Banana Club and waited for Kong Taichu. Yes, after Andre defeated the martial arts grandmaster of Jinling, Zhou Xian, Xiaobin turned the tables and occupied the Banana Club. He called over the 13 pants of Jinling and stayed in bed every day drinking tea and listening to music. He was as carefree as an immortal. Will Kong Taichu show up? For a time, the overlords around the world turned their attention to Wuxia, the Yangtze River Delta and the ancient city of Jinlin City. I'm afraid that Kong Taichu is scared. After all, Xiaobin has reached the immortal state and is much stronger than Lin Zhenyu. After 3 days, Jiang Tian still hadn't shown up. Countless martial artists shook their heads and sighed in disappointment. Suddenly the tide had turned. Many martial artists gathered at the Banana Club and paid their respects to Xiaobin's sect. Flattery flooded the area as they bowed and acknowledged Xiaobin as their master. Martial artists were also human beings and they knew fear. If Xiaobin really stepped into the half-step deity realm, then he would be too invincible. Who could fight him? If he were to bathe his head in blood, he could only stretch out his neck to be executed. Moreover, the military's attitude was vague and they didn't say a word. Therefore many rumors spread. Some people said that the military wanted to recruit Xiaobin and shake hands with him. They even let him be the long formation team leader and lead the martial arts community of Wuxia with Yi Zhantian. This made the martial artists even more afraid. If the news is true, then Xiaobin's strength is far beyond Kong Taichu. He is just the Grand Preceptor of Singapore, while Xiaobin is the overlord who leads the 2 superpowers of China and Russia. A martial artist was shocked. Chapter 343. That's right. Kong Taichu hasn't come out for so long. He must be on the verge of collapsing. We have to build a good relationship with Xiaobin. It's not strange to be polite. If he leads the long formation, he will definitely attack Kong Taichu. Kong Taichu is in danger this time. That's right. Xiaobin is much stronger than Kong Taichu. Back then, Kong Taichu dominated the martial arts world of Wuxia, staining his path with blood. But Xiaobin always leaves some leeway. He only wants to win and never kills anyone. That's right. This is the true demeanor of a grandmaster. He only wants to spar and doesn't go overboard. He's completely unlike Kong Taichu, who is ruthless and merciless. He kills every opponent he meets. Instantly the news spread like wildfire. The situation took a turn for the worse. Many warriors avoided Jiang Tian and his faction like snakes and scorpions. They befriended Xiaobin and crowded the Banana Club. While Jinling was in turmoil and the martial arts world of Wuxia was shaken, Jiang Tian's reconstruction of his body had reached the most critical juncture. 9,999th drop. Jiang Tianzhang's last drop exploded with a loud bang, turning into streaks of golden light that pervaded the air. The metal and wood spirit core between his fingers instantly crumbled, turning into fine powder that drifted in the air. At this moment, Jiang Tian still looked the same, but his entire body was bathed in golden light. Even his shoulder-length hair, skin, teeth and eyes were golden. He was surrounded by thousands of rays of auspicious light, making him look like a Buddha that had descended into the mortal world. After 3 months of wind and rain, the thatched hut at the top of Swirling Islands Mountain was in a state of decay. However, it rippled with a strange golden color as though it was made of gold. Any tree branch or grass could easily crush a peerless inner force cultivator to death. The power of the metal and wood spirit core was just too powerful. Even the exhaust that leaked out could transform ordinary matter into a peerless divine weapon. Jiang Tian took a deep breath and like a tornado he sucked the last of the metal spirit core into his body. As he stood up, every inch of his bones, every joint and every piece of his flesh and blood were trembling. There was actually a series of metal grinding sounds that made one's teeth ache. His body had actually grown taller out of thin air, reaching over 2 meters. His entire person was like an enraged Vajra. Gung metal divine body is too difficult to cultivate. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed. I thought that with my 10,000 years of cultivation experience, I would be able to push my divine body to the level of great success. But now it seems that the best result would only be small success. Only 10 types of divine abilities can be awakened. This is also because there are too few metal and wood spiritual cores, only one. If there were more, there might be a chance to push it to the realm of great accomplishment. Fortunately, my divine body has reached the small success stage and I have already built the framework of the divine body. In the future, when I absorb more heaven and earth spirit energy and convert it into seventh metal true essence, I can still gradually condense it to the large success stage or even the perfection stage and the peak stage. Thinking of this, Zhang Tian nodded with satisfaction. A trace of determination appeared in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, forget it, forget it. It's already very good to be able to cultivate to this level. Let's take one last gamble and see if I can achieve it in one go. When Zhang Tian was about to use the gung metal divine body technique to begin the final reconstruction of the body, the phone rang. Kia, what's wrong? Zhang Tian's face was solemn as he quickly answered the phone. Zhang Tian had set up the phone so that only Qing'er could call in. If there was no major incident, Qing'er would never disturb him. After listening to Qing'er's story, Zhang Tian said lightly, okay, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. Tang Linglong is my disciple and also your sister. Teach that old bastard Xiaobin a lesson. But don't kill Xiaobin. After 3 days I will come out of seclusion and personally kill this bastard. Soon Zhang Tian hung up the phone. With Qing'er around, he was not worried. Even if Xiaobin was a transcendent state cultivator, he would not be able to defeat Zhao Xueqing. I hope I can break through the final hurdle. Zhang Tian's face was solemn as he shouted, refine. Following that, the gung metal divine body technique started to activate. Boom. It was as loud as thunder. Deep inside Zhang Tian's qi, it was as if thunder had struck. His true ether surged like a tidal wave, and in the next moment, his fingers exploded. Bang! Flesh and blood splattered everywhere as the bones of his fingers were exposed. As if they were made of jade, they were crystal clear and shone brightly. Strange Dao inscriptions were engraved on them and they exuded an ancient aura. This is the root bone. The so-called spirit root and root bone are the foundation to reconstruct the body. As the saying goes, great buildings start from the ground. The spiritual root bone must be refined at the same time as the gung metal qi. The gung metal qi in the gung metal qi is like a building material. Without it there is no way to add bricks and tiles. Looking at the Dao inscriptions on his fingers, Zhang Tian's face flashed with satisfaction as he nodded slightly. Refine. Zhang Tian's expression didn't change. His hands exploded, his legs exploded, and in the end even his chest exploded. His white sternum was exposed and all his organs were blown away. Only a ball of golden qi floated in his chest like a golden wave. Moreover, there were many Dao inscriptions flickering in the qi. These Dao inscriptions could be traced back to the beginning of the universe in Hongmeng. They seemed to contain endless power and mystery. At this moment, a trace of pain finally appeared on his face. He clenched his teeth and the muscles on his face twitched. Even with his powerful divine sense and strong Taoist heart, he could not withstand the excruciating pain. Many connate divine bodies were different from the body of flesh and blood. They were completely formed by vast connate spirit qi. Zhang Tian's gung metal divine body was formed by the gung metal qi. As the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. To become a divine body, one must first break the body of the mortal body. This was the first step to reconstruct his body. In the end, Zhang Tian's head exploded and his brain splattered everywhere. Only a ball of divine sense and consciousness lingered in the air. At this moment he was only left with a skeleton. Condense. Zhang Tian shouted softly as he activated the last chapter of the gung metal divine body art, the shaping chapter. Streaks of golden qi flowed out of his qi. They shone with a strange golden light and spread throughout his body along his bones. They first condensed into golden liquid, then solidified into blood vessels and meridians. Then silver light flashed and liquid like mercury was injected into his body, forming blood and saliva. Then streams of surging gung metal yuan qi flowed in like adding bricks and tiles, condensing pieces of muscles, organs, and finally the skin was covered. Hair grew like bamboo shoots after the rain, and the long hair only stopped slightly when it reached the shoulder. At this moment Zhang Tian's bones were like jade, his blood was like mercury, his skin was like ice and snow, and his skin was like frost. He was 70 to 80% similar to before. His features were similar, but he was incomparably handsome. There wasn't a trace of impurities on his body, and he was as clean as jade. His body was like a glass cup and his heart was like a mirror. He was like a perfect heavenly god. There was nothing inappropriate about him and he exuded a strange charm. Moreover, he also had an additional wave of immortal spiritual energy, making one's soul tremble with a single glance. They would feel the urge to kneel down and submit, prostrate themselves in worship. Once a cultivator awakened their deity body or reconstructed their deity body, they would be able to change their appearance according to their own preferences. It was thousands of times more powerful than the best plastic surgery. Therefore, there was no lack of handsome men and beautiful women in the cultivation world. Instead, some people saw through the facade and changed their appearance according to their own personality or temperament. Therefore, in the cultivation world, ugly men, ugly women, children, and cripples were not to be trifled with. This was because they were experts with deity bodies or deity bodies who could change their appearance according to their own preferences. The gung metal divine body is finally complete. It's time for me to awaken my deity body. Jiang Tian's face was a little excited. His eyes focused and he began to awaken one powerful deity ability after another. Outside the Banana Club and the area around Moling Lake. These days, many martial artists had gathered and were anxiously waiting for Kong Teichu to make his move and witness the battle of the century. Xiaobin would either be boating on Moling Lake or lying high up in the Banana Club listening to music every day. He was free and unfettered, but his prestige was swelling day by day. In contrast, Kong Teichu's name gradually lost its luster. On the one hand, the martial artists who had gathered here were here to meet Grandmaster Qiao and establish a relationship with him. In addition, they were also looking forward to witnessing the most earth-shattering battle in Wuxia's martial arts world in the past 100 years. After all, Xiaobin was the founder of the Winter Soldier Organization and was known as the #1 expert in Russia. He was much stronger than Lin Zhenyu. In the end, Lin Zhenyu was just an expert worshipped by the organization. Although the Great Circle was a little stronger and was a global super-organization, it was still incomparable to a powerful country like Russia. And Jiang Tian was no longer the Jiangbei Master Kong of Poyang Lake. He was the imperial preceptor of Xingzhou, an expert on the Dark Roll, the leader of the Heavenly Alliance, and the #1 Grandmaster on the Divine List in Wuxia. He had already made a name for himself and was no longer the same as before. It could be said that this battle was even more eye-catching than the battle between Jiang Tian and Lin Zhenyu at the Poyang Lake Manor. It's been 4 months and Kong Teichu still hasn't shown up. Is he planning to be a coward until the end? What kind of grandmaster is he? Kong Teichu became famous when he was young. It's normal for him to be afraid. It's not strange. But I heard that his disciple Tang Linglong was captured by Grandmaster Qiao, but he's still a coward. The #1 Grandmaster on the Divine List? Bah! What a joke. What kind of heavenly alliance is this? They're still protecting Wuxia. Now they don't even dare to show up at their doorstep. Yeah, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankun and Hu Qingtian are no match for him. They can't even defeat his disciple. This wait had lasted 4 months since Xiaobin returned to Wuxia. Gradually, everyone lost their patience. From the initial excitement and anticipation, to anxiety and torment, to disappointment and doubt. Finally, it turned into endless mockery and indifference. Wei Feilong felt it the most. In the beginning, many martial artists supported Jiang Tian and went to the injured members of the Heavenly Alliance to comfort them. Even if they didn't dare to attack Xiaobin, they still scolded him with righteous indignation to show their attitude. But gradually, as Xiaobin's 2 disciples defeated them, no one cared about the Heavenly Alliance anymore. There were even 2 grandmasters who quit because they were too old to care about the disputes in Jianghu. As a result, the Heavenly Alliance had become a laughing stock in the eyes of the martial artists in the world. A bunch of weaklings and cowards. Chapter 344. Lingnan and Jinling were also in turmoil. Many people were eager to cut ties with the Sky Alliance and Kong Teichu. However, Wei Feilong did not blame others. Martial artists were also human beings. It was human nature to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Martial artists could not avoid this custom. I'm afraid Kong Teichu will still not appear today. It's no surprise. If Kang Teichu dares to appear, would he wait until now? Maybe he has already escaped from Wuxia. On this day, many martial artists gathered at the Banana Club to chat and drink tea. They casually ridiculed Kang Teichu. In fact, ridiculing Kang Teichu had become a new trend in the martial arts world. Creak. The black door was pushed open from the outside. A graceful figure walked slowly into the courtyard. There's a beauty. She should be a waitress. A female martial artist is rare in Wuxia. Everyone was discussing in surprise. Mistress, here. Zhou Xian, who was entertaining guests in the courtyard, saw this and hurried forward. He bowed and cupped his fists excitedly. These days he had been bullied by Xiao Bin. He was regarded as Kang Teichu's henchman. His arms were broken and his face was covered in dirt. Even so, he had to serve Xiao Bin every day. He was often scolded and slapped by Viper and Andre. Could be said that he was living a life worse than death. Seeing this, everyone was even more stunned and bewildered. Who was this woman? How could she make Zhou Xian so respectful? He was the overlord of Jinling. Oh, I'm bringing my husband's disciple Tang Linglong back. Zhao Xueqing faintly responded. Looking at the bandaged arm hanging in front of his chest, her face sank. She frowned and said, "That old thief Xiao Bin did this?" "Mistress, please excuse me." Zhou Xian had an awkward expression on his face as he smiled bitterly. Sorrow welled up in his heart. He shook his head, causing his white hair to sway. It was as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. Thinking back to when he advanced in seclusion, he thought he could dominate Su province. At that time he was so high-spirited and full of heroic spirit. But who would have thought that when he encountered a true expert he would be trampled on like an ant? The ideal was plentiful, but the reality was bony. From now on you're a member of the Heavenly Alliance. The Heavenly Alliance will make decisions for you, uphold justice for you and avenge you. Zhao Xueqing said indifferently, "Don't worry, Xiao Bin is definitely dead this time. We will pay blood for blood." Hehe, your tone is very arrogant. Suddenly, a figure flashed and appeared in the courtyard. It was Viper. Her blonde hair draped over her shoulders and she held a bottle of vodka in her hand. She was drunk, but her malicious eyes stared at Zhao Xueqing, emitting a vicious and cold light. She said in broken Wuxia language, "You don't even respect my master. Do you want to die?" She's out. Get out of the way. Seeing Viper appear, many martial artists in the surroundings retreated. Their eyes were full of fear, afraid that they would be implicated. Zhou Xian hurriedly introduced her from the side. Zhao Xueqing's pretty face turned cold and she said, "Where's Tang Linglong? Hand her over to me." "Hand her over to you? What right do you have?" Viper exhaled a strong smell of alcohol, and her face was full of disdain and ridicule. "I'm Kang Teichu's wife. I'm passing a message on behalf of my husband. 3 days later he will experience Mr. Qiao's skills on Moling Lake. My husband said that Tang Linglong is only a junior. He's just in seclusion and he will never back down. Mr. Qiao, you don't have to restrain him. Don't bully the weak and lose the demeanor of a master." Zhao Xueqing's pretty face was cold as she said coldly, "What if we don't hand her over? What can you do to me? Are you going to kneel down and kowtow?" Viper looked at her mockingly, and the corners of her bright red lips rose into a mocking arc. She looked at Zhao Xueqing as if she was retarded. She might be afraid of Kang Teichu and she might need to be cautious when meeting Kang Teichu. But his wife looked like an ordinary person, so what was there to be afraid of? "I'll give you 1 minute to consider. If you don't hand her over, you'll die." Zhao Xueqing's pretty eyebrows furrowed slightly. She raised her wrist and looked at the time on her Patek Philippe watch with a little impatience. She's Kang Teichu's wife. She dares to come in front of Xiao Bin. Isn't she afraid of death? Kang Teichu is going to accept the challenge? Or is he just using this as an excuse to save his disciple? I've only heard that Kang Teichu is very strong, but I've never heard that Kang Teichu's wife is proficient in martial arts. Once Qing'er's words came out, the entire crowd was shocked. Many martial artists whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. They looked at Zhao Xueqing in surprise. "Sai, she's the same as Kang Teichu. She doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even Hu Qingtian isn't Xiao Bin's opponent. She came over and dared to threaten this bewitching woman. Isn't she just asking to be killed? Some martial artists were mocking her. They couldn't detect any martial artist's aura from Qing'er. They only felt that she was a delicate and weak woman. They immediately looked down on her and felt that Zhou Xian was extremely retarded and didn't know what was good for her. Ah, are all the women around Kong Teichu so arrogant and ignorant? I heard that Kong Teichu is a crazy wife-doting demon. I didn't expect him to be so unbearable. He doesn't dare to stand up for himself and let his wife take the bullet? That's hilarious. What a cowardly Wuxia man. Viper gulped down a mouthful of vodka and laughed heartily as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Good. 1 minute is up. The surroundings were filled with mocking laughter. Qing'er turned a deaf ear to these mocking voices. Suddenly she retracted her gaze from her wristwatch. Her pretty face turned cold and she said coldly, "You can die now." At this moment, a powerful aura of the immortal body of the stainless phoenix rose from Qing'er's body and soared into the sky. So strong. Feeling the sharp and powerful aura, Viper's face changed. His pupils suddenly contracted to the size of a needle and the vodka in his hand shattered. She had already realized that the person in front of her was a super expert. She had to strike first to gain the upper hand. Her body leaped and pulled out a series of afterimages. Her sharp poison nails scratched towards Zhou Xian's tender neck. Zhou Xian was faster than her. With a wave of her fingers, a sharp qi weapon that was 3 meters long slashed out like mercury flowing down the ground. What? A transcendent grandmaster. At this moment Viper was scared out of her wits. Her expression changed drastically. Qing'er's cultivation was much stronger than she had imagined. Snake scale protection secret art. In a blink of an eye, she raised her arms in front of her chest and unleashed her supernatural power. Suddenly, snake scales appeared on her arms. They flashed with a strange cold light like an eerie iron armor. The scales moved slightly, trying to block Qing'er's attack. She had also practiced the snake body tempering art. However, she was much more powerful than the rattlesnakes that Qing'er had encountered before. Her genes had mutated and her body had become as tough as a snake's skin. It was invulnerable to fire and water. However, all of this was useless against Qing'er's phoenix body qi weapon. Puff. Her arm, which was tough enough to withstand bullets, was actually cut off by the sharp qi weapon. Amidst her mournful screams, smelly and poisonous blood spurted out from her severed arm like a small fountain. After chopping off her arms, the qi weapon didn't slow down at all. It directly cut through her scale-covered chest into 2. Then her corpse fell to the ground in 2 pieces, splashing out scarlet blood. One of Qiao Bin's 4 disciples, Viper, was dead. What? She's so powerful. She killed Viper with a wave of her fingers. She can use the qi weapon. She's also a grandmaster. Everyone gaped at Viper's body on the ground. They couldn't believe it. Viper was Qiao Bin's disciple and had defeated Zhao Yuanquan. Rumor had it that she was an S-level warrior and had a strange bloodline. Even a transcendent grandmaster had to be wary of her. However, she was no match for this woman. Little did they know that Qing'er had the supreme immortal body of the immortal phoenix. That qi weapon was so sharp that it could even split an armored vehicle into 2 and cut through everything in the world. Bitch, you are so arrogant. A thunderous roar came out like a clap of thunder. Many people felt a sharp pain in their eardrums and were on the verge of collapsing. A tall, surging and incomparably violent figure shot out from the 3rd floor like a cannonball, bringing with it an indomitable and violent aura. The figure traveled a dozen meters. Clang! It landed on the ground, creating a 3-meter-wide crater. The ground shook violently as if there was an earthquake and dust flew everywhere. How dare you kill Grandmaster Qiao's disciple? Are you tired of living? Kneel now and I will spare your life. Andre suddenly appeared and glared at Zhou Xian with bloodthirsty eyes. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He took a step forward and approached Zhou Xian. Unruly bastard. Zhou Xian frowned and lifted her jade-like hand. Her slender fingers were like peeled spring onions. They were crystal clear and did not contain any impurities. They were extremely beautiful. Kneel. Then with a shout, her jade-like hand slapped down casually as if she was swatting a fly. Kaboom! There was a loud noise and the air changed. It was like a thunderclap. The friction in the air was like a grenade explosion. A giant palm formed by the aura of the divine phoenix, which was 3 meters long, suddenly appeared 5 meters above Andre's head. Then it came crashing down like a mountain. What is this? Andre raised his head to take a look and his eyes were filled with shock. Then his special ability awakened and the hair on his body rapidly grew out. He turned into a werewolf and raised his hands to burn the sky, wanting to use his strong physical body to take on this attack. Bang! His body was strong, but it was useless against Qing'er's attack. The divine phoenix's aura was extremely condensed and heavy. It was not an exaggeration to say that a ball the size of a basketball could crush a physique refinement grandmaster to death. Pfft! Andre felt as if thousands of mountains had crashed down on him. He spat out a mouthful of blood. As Qing'er's hand pressed down slightly, Andre's feet sank a few centimeters into the ground. Creak creak creak. The bones all over his body made a strange ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against each other, as if they were going to fall apart in the next second. Under this powerful force, he gritted his teeth and roared. He struggled with all his might and revealed his werewolf form. However, he could not withstand it at all. He bowed, bent his knees and knelt. Chapter 345. Bang! He was hit so hard that he fell to the ground like a toad, almost sinking into the mud and bricks. He was completely covered by the huge palm of qi. The whole place was dead silent. Everyone was horrified and dumbstruck. Their throats were hoarse and they couldn't make the slightest sound. It was as if they had fallen into a dream and didn't dare believe it. Only Andre's screams and curses kept coming out. Women are really not inferior to men. Kong Teichu has such a fierce wife. What more could a husband ask for? Only Zhou Xian was not surprised. He was excited and full of admiration. He knew that Zhao Xueqing's attack was just a prelude. Qing'er's cultivation was taught by Master Kong. If she was so powerful, how powerful would Kong Teichu be when he came out of seclusion? That would cause a great storm. Lady Jiang, you are indeed a supreme beauty. You are unparalleled. A voice as loud as a bell rang out. It was so powerful that many martial artists bowed down. Even Zhou Xian couldn't bear it and took a few steps back. Qiao Bin appeared in front of the window on the 3rd floor. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked down at Zhao Xueqing with admiration. It's not an exaggeration to say that if I met you 20 years ago, I would have to avoid you. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. 20 years ago Qiao Bin was slightly better than Yi Zhantian. But Qiao Bin gave Kong Teichu's wife such a compliment. Didn't that mean that she could even defeat Yi Zhantian 20 years ago? She seemed to be in her early 20s. It was not an exaggeration to call her a young girl. But her cultivation was so powerful. Sister Qing'er came to save me. But why did she come to save me? Why didn't I save her? Beside him, Tang Linglong looked at Zhao Xueqing with a complicated expression. She felt a little warm, a little ashamed, a little unwilling and a little jealous that she herself didn't want to admit. She wanted to replace her. What? Grandmaster Qiao's evaluation of this woman is simply shocking. 20 years ago she was able to suppress Yi Zhantian. Doesn't this mean that this woman's strength is even stronger than Yi Zhantian's? Everyone's faces were filled with shock as they looked at Zhao Xueqing with awe and fear in their eyes. Qiao Bin's evaluation could be said to not be stingy with his praises, praising Madame Jiang to the heavens. However, no matter how strong you are, I will not let you off for killing my disciples. Qiao Bin sneered. The monstrous aura of a Master Realm expert pushed out. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down, as if the Milky Way was hanging upside down. It made people shudder and unable to withstand it. Grandmaster Qiao, the battle between you and my master is a battle between two masters. Don't involve these juniors, okay? Even in the face of Qiao Bin, a peerless expert, Zhao Xueqing's aura didn't weaken at all. She smiled calmly and said, "We haven't fought yet, but we have already attacked each other's disciples and juniors. Those who know will say that we are joking with them. Those who don't know will say that we are narrow-minded and bully the weak. Madame Zhang's words are beautiful. Reasonable and reasonable. Soft on the outside but tough on the inside. You are indeed Kong Teichu's wife." Xiao Bin's anger disappeared and he clapped his hands with joy and admiration. He smiled and said, Kong Teichu has such an immortal companion. How enviable. He said with a gratified face. This old man did not expect that in just a few years, Wuxia would have such a pair of stunning beauties like you. You are so much stronger than Yi Zhantian. You flatter me. Zhao Xueqing was at ease and her temperament was ethereal. She was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. She smiled and said, the two of us just want to live a peaceful life. We won't stir up trouble or compete with others. However, we are not afraid to fight with people like Mr. Qiao who came to our door and kidnapped my master's disciple. We are not afraid to fight. Not to mention Mr. Qiao, even if the commander of the Northern Army is our enemy, we will still deal with him. Arrogant, too arrogant. She is not even afraid of the Russian army. She is so powerful that she can swallow the sun and the moon. She is indeed Kong Teichu's wife. Even though these words were spoken indifferently, they were boundlessly domineering and arrogant, and it simply shocked everyone present. Nonsense, how high is her cultivation level? I'm afraid she is only at the peak of the transcendent state. She is not qualified to fight against the superpowers of the world. Some people thought it was nonsense, but they were frightened by Qing'er's majesty and did not dare to raise their voices. They just whispered. Not afraid to fight, not afraid to fight. Women are not inferior to men. Xiao Bin smacked his lips and said with a smile, if Mrs. Jiang is so magnanimous, I believe Kong Teichu will also fight with the old man. Well, I won't make things difficult for the younger generation. Take this child away. Then he patted Tang Linglong's back and she immediately fell in front of Zhao Xueqing. Qing'er used a gentle force to catch Tang Linglong. Tang Linglong's face changed and she immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood contained ice crystals and white cold air spread out. Zhao Xueqing scanned the blood with her divine sense and her face turned cold. She said, Old man Qiao, you are too much. You actually took advantage of the situation and injured her. And you keep saying that you won't make things difficult for the younger generation. Boy. I believe Kong Teichu, but I don't trust the officials of Wuxia. Xiao Bin smiled and said, I planted a cold ice profound qi in her body. If the officials don't play any tricks when Jiang Taichu makes his move, I will give the antidote to this girl. If the military makes a move, no one can cure this profound qi and no medicine can cure it. After a week, she will be frozen into a lump of ice. 20 years ago I suffered a loss from the officials. This cold ice qi was so domineering. Even though it was July, Tang Linglong still felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her entire body was cold, and there was actually a white mist lingering on the surface of her body. Her meridians and internal organs felt as if there were tens of thousands of sharp knives stirring. The intense pain was so unbearable that she couldn't help but tremble. But she did not want to disgrace her master, so she gritted her teeth and said, Sister Qing'e, I'm fine. Zhao Xueqing clasped her wrist and channeled a stream of divine phoenix vital essence into her to protect her heart aperture. Then she fed her a few qi-nourishing elixirs. Holding her hand, she walked out of the door without looking back and said in a cold voice, Old thief Qiao, you better not run. 3 days later my husband will fight with you at Moling Lake. An old man can run? What a joke. Xiao Bin sneered, his face full of disdain. You and Kong Teichu are not bad, but you are still far from an old man. I will let that little kid Kong Teichu know how powerful I am. The founder of Russia's Winter Soldiers, the veteran Grandmaster Xiao Bin, would fight with Kong Teichu at Moling Lake in Jinling on July 15, 2009. When this news spread, Wuxia's martial arts world was the first to be shaken. Xiao Bin was a renowned veteran grandmaster in the northeast during the Republic of China. He was once the head of the personal guards of the warlord Zhang Laoshuai. Even Zhang Shaoshuai had to respectfully address him as Master Qiao. In the 1990s, during the long formation Operation Drawing Sword, he was the only strong person who could compete with Yi Zhantian. Could even be said that he was stronger than Yi Zhantian. In the end, the military used heavy weapons to force him out of Wuxia. He was wounded and went to the Siberian glaciers, but it was a blessing in disguise. He was highly regarded by Russia's Northern Army and built the Winter Soldiers in just 20 years. He led the Winter Soldiers in Russia for 20 years, killed the Blood Clan, controlled the werewolves and suppressed the tyrants. His military achievements were outstanding, and he was qualified to be on equal footing with the Russian emperor. Because of these brilliant military achievements, the Winter Soldiers could be on par with the Western Pantheon and Japanese Cherry Blossom Society with a longer history. They could even suppress the Singapore Chinese Society. As for Kang Taechu, although he was a rising star, his military achievements were also brilliant. He had killed Lin Zhenyu on Poyang Lake and became famous overnight. After that, he established the Heaven Alliance as the #1 Grandmaster on the divine role in Wuxia. During the battle on Mount Everest, he defeated all the strong people in Southeast Asia. Then he massacred hundreds of Dark World elites in Jinlin City. Around the Spring Festival, he went to Singapore and killed Wang Chongyan to defend his position as the Grand Preceptor of Singapore. He took control of the Chinese Society of Singapore and became a superpower that shocked the world. Today the two of them were going to collide violently like Mars crashing into Earth. For a moment, this news swept across the entire Dark World like a hurricane. The news spread like an earthquake. It spread out of Jinlin City and Wuxia. South Korea, East Asia, Western Europe, North America, and the Middle East were all paying close attention to the battle. The observer said that Kang Taechu was qualified to be on par with the top forces in the world. I didn't expect him to clash with the Winter Soldiers so soon. Kang Taechu has finally accepted the challenge. Kang Taechu is in seclusion. I'm afraid he will be half a step away from the immortal state when he comes out this time. Xiao Bin will also be half a step away from the immortal state. After all, he has the support of Russia. That means this will be the first battle between two half-step immortal state warriors in decades. Countless overlords' eyes lit up. This was a battle between half-step immortal state warriors. How exciting would that be? It had been many years since an immortal state warrior had appeared in the world, let alone in the Dark World. After all, after the birth of nuclear weapons, the immortal state warriors either died or went into seclusion. Time passed quickly in the ticking sound of the second hand. The 3-day agreement was almost up. Master Kang is still not back? Will something happen to him? Tang Hongtu waited anxiously at the Fulong Mountain mansion. Although the energy of the Phoenix Girl's deity body was powerful, Zhao Xueqing was still a far cry from Jiang Tian in terms of medical skills. Although she had injected a lot of true essence into Tang Linglong, her body was deteriorating. Only 2 days had passed and she was extremely weak. Even with a few layers of blankets and a stove beside her, her body was still frozen. Her skin was blue and her internal organs were failing. By then the beautiful girl's cheeks had caved in and her cheekbones were exposed. She was unconscious. He was on the verge of death and was extremely weak. He was like a lamp that had run out of oil and was on the verge of death. He was unconscious and kept talking nonsense. It seemed that he was about to die. Chapter 346. Calm down. Since Master Kang said that he will come back on time and he will save my granddaughter. Accompanied by Jiang Chongqing, Elder Tang walked out of the ward with a cane and said firmly. He was naturally worried about his granddaughter's situation. He had infinite confidence in Jiang Tian. He was a godlike figure who would never go back on his words. While everyone was waiting anxiously, a black light flashed in the sky like a meteor. Everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes, and a tall and dignified figure appeared in front of them. Master Kang, you're back. Tang Linglong's mother, Chen Exin, wiped her tears and said, Master Kang. Everyone exclaimed and greeted him as if they had seen a savior and a god. They were soon relieved. Don't worry, Linglong will be fine. I'll go and see. Jiang Tian gave her a comforting look and walked into Tang Linglong's room. As if they had a tacit understanding, the moment Jiang Tian walked into the room, Tang Linglong opened her eyes slightly and murmured, Master, you're back. Am I dreaming? It's not a dream. I'm back. Jiang Tian squeezed her palm. You're really back. I've embarrassed you. Tang Linglong was moved and apologetic. Tears with ice crystals rolled down her cheeks. Don't think too much. Jiang Tian picked her up and sat her in his arms. He fed her a fire spirit pill, and then put his palm on her back and poured a stream of vital essence into her. Master, I seem to be better. Tang Linglong was refreshed and instantly felt much better. Her whole body was warm and she felt indescribably comfortable. Don't talk. It'll be fine in a while. Zhang Tian poured his vital essence into her body as if it was free to help her refine the pill. It could be said that Xiao Bin's ice profound qi was indeed terrifying. There were less than 5 people in the world who could dispel this kind of evil energy. However, this fire spirit pill was refined by Zhang Tian using the flesh and blood of the scarlet-eyed white ape. It contained the fire element, and after being strengthened by many heavenly treasures, it had a nourishing effect. Could be said to be a miraculous elixir, and its effect was very domineering. Under the powerful effect of the fire spirit pill, the ice qi in Tang Linglong's body disintegrated rapidly. Her exhausted internal organs and blood vessels were quickly nourished. Her shriveled cheeks swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's done. 10 minutes later, Zhang Tian withdrew his hand and said with a smile. As expected, Tang Linglong felt that her body was warm and full of strength. She was overjoyed and said, "Master, it's really healed. Thank you. You're still being polite with me, you're my only disciple." Zhang Tian smiled and pinched her pretty nose. "Master, please go out." Tang Linglong suddenly pulled up the quilt to cover her face and said shyly, "Why? I'm too ugly now." Tang Linglong's voice was full of shyness. "Silly girl, how are you ugly? Look at yourself in the mirror," Zhang Tian said with a smile. Tang Linglong got up suspiciously. She came to the mirror and looked at herself in disbelief. Master, I've become beautiful." At this time she had a graceful figure, fair skin and exquisite facial features. Her face was full of a faint immortal aura. She was even more beautiful than before she was sick. "Master, you're so good. This elixir must be very expensive." Tang Linglong looked at Zhang Tian gratefully. Her eyes were red and she was about to cry. "Silly girl, you're talking nonsense. You're my disciple, so I naturally have to protect you for the rest of your life." Zhang Tian smiled faintly and said, "It's just a stream of ice qi. Even if Xiao Bin, that old thief, killed you, so what? I'll find your divine soul and help you reconstruct your physical body." Hearing this, Tang Linglong felt warm in her heart. Then she said embarrassedly, "Master, I've embarrassed you this time. Our War Dragon Alliance didn't succeed in killing Xiao Bin, so he could return to Wuxia and set off a bloodbath. No, it's not your fault." Zhang Tian smiled and comforted her. "Xiao Bin is not in the same order of magnitude as you. He has the support of Russia. Even Hu Qingtian is not his match. What's so strange about that?" "Master Kong, we were defeated by Xiao Bin and brought shame to the Heavenly Alliance. Please punish us, Master Kong." Zhang Tian helped Tang Linglong to recuperate for another hour before he walked out of the door. Immediately, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankun, Hu Qingtian, and other backbones of the Heavenly Alliance came up to him. They bowed and clenched their fists in shame. "You're not guilty if you're not afraid of fighting. It's not your fault that there's a difference in strength." Zhang Tian patted Hu Qingtian's shoulder and said calmly. "Dragon Fifth and his son were killed by him. The old man couldn't stop him at all. We just found out recently that Fu Biao, who you killed in Snakehead Town, was his only grandson." Hu Qingtian said sadly. "Besides, Qingtian and 2 war dragons were killed." Tang Hongtu clenched his teeth and said angrily. "What? Dragon Fifth and his son are dead? Qingtian is also dead?" Zhang Tian's face darkened. A sharp killing intent flashed in his eyes as he said coldly, "It's right that he challenged me, but he shouldn't have killed my disciples. This time I'll kill him myself and let everyone see the price of offending the Heavenly Alliance." In fact, he didn't have a good relationship with Dragon Fifth and his son, so he didn't take them seriously. However, since they belonged to his sphere of influence, no one could touch them. As for the war dragons, they were personally trained by him, so no one could offend them. However, Qingtian had been killed by them. Even with Zhang Tian's indifferent state of mind, he couldn't bear it and was boiling with anger. "Master Kong, you have to be very careful in this battle. Xiao Bin is more powerful than before. I'm afraid he's half a step to the divine realm." Everyone was shocked and said worriedly, So what if he's in the divine realm? I can kill him with one hand." Zhang Tian laughed coldly. His words were overbearing, suppressing the world. Just as everyone was shocked, Zhang Tian stepped on the flying sword and turned into a black light. He pierced through the void and disappeared in a flash. Master Kong has refined the flying sword successfully? He's flying in the sky and burrowing into the earth. He's just like an immortal. This time old thief Chow will definitely die. Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. Then they were overjoyed and excited. Moling Lake, also known as Xuanwu Lake, was a famous tourist attraction in Jinling City. It was Mount Jijin in the east and the Ming City Wall in the west. It covered more than 500 hectares and was the largest royal garden lake in Wuxia. It was known as the Pearl of Jinling. Today was the weekend. Many tourists wanted to visit this place but found that a large number of military and police officers were not allowed to enter. At this moment, Meng Yao was walking on the stone path beside the lake unhappily. Her long hair draped over her shoulders and her face was exquisite. Her snow-white shirt was neat and tidy, and her silk three-quarter pants revealed a section of her snow-white calves. Her black, genuine leather, diamond-studded crystal high heels revealed her pink toes. She was like a perfect domineering president. However, there was a melancholy between her brows that couldn't be dispelled, adding a bit of artistic aura. She was like the pitiful little sister Lin, causing many people to turn around and look at this beautiful girl. Meng Yao, are you thinking about that big bad guy again? Tang Bao asked beside her. No. Meng Yao squeezed out a smile. You're still denying it. Ever since we were kicked out by that bastard and Su Ruoqing at the Banana Club, you haven't smiled much. Tang Bao smiled. If you ask me, Du Mingtao is not bad. He has a good family background, is handsome and cares about you. He's not like Jiang Tian, who's so arrogant and ignores us. Her tone was a little resentful, but as she spoke her voice gradually became softer. It was clear that she was very wary of Jiang Tian. Ever since House Jiang defeated the three noble houses of Jinling, Tang Bao was completely frightened. Even Su Ruoqing was obedient to Jiang Tian. It was like a legend. This Du Mingtao she was talking about was Meng Yao's new suitor. His family was the second in command of the Jinling Police Department and was quite famous in Jinling. In Meng Yao's eyes, Du Mingtao was more than worthy of her. He was even stronger than her previous suitor, Xianxia. But for some reason, compared to Jiang Tian, she felt that Du Mingtao paled in comparison. She wasn't interested in him at all. She thought about it carefully, but she still couldn't figure out her feelings for Jiang Tian. Like, fear, jealousy, dissatisfaction, disbelief, regret, dissatisfaction. All kinds of complicated feelings were in her heart. But in short, in this half a year, the name Jiang Tian had been entrenched in her mind and occupied her heart. She didn't want to give up on Jiang Tian. She knew that Jiang Tian had a good relationship with Shen Monong, who worked in Fairsky's lab. She asked him to help her contact Su Ruoqing so that she could enter the Banana Club. But it was strange that Jiang Tian hadn't appeared in the Banana Club for the past 6 months. Banana Club wasn't open to outsiders these days. Meng Yao, drink some juice. It's too hot. Du Haitao, who was walking in front, bought 2 bottles of freshly squeezed juice from the convenience store and handed it over with a smile. Let's go boating. Tang Bao suggested excitedly. Bao, that's a good suggestion. The two of them nodded and walked forward, but they were stopped by the police tape. Sorry, there's martial law in front. Sightseeing is prohibited. Please go back. The man in a black suit said coldly and expressionlessly. What kind of joke is this? There are tourists there. Why are they going in? Which department are you from? Tang Bao said unhappily. They have permission to enter. Sorry. The man in black's walkie-talkie rang. He walked into the economic zone and pulled out the walkie-talkie from his waist, ignoring the 3. At this moment Meng Yao's pupils shrank. She frowned in shock. He has a gun at his waist. Du Mingtao, who was very handsome and could even be called a handsome guy, smiled, revealing a row of white and neat teeth. He said indifferently, Don't worry, I'll make a call to the municipal bureau. There's nowhere in Jinling that I can't go. As he spoke he dialed his father's number, but after a moment he hung up the phone resentfully and said, I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do. My dad said that there's a big leader coming to visit the lake. It's locked down. There's no room for negotiation. Then there's nothing we can do. Just as the 2 girls were feeling disappointed, everyone saw more than a dozen Audi commercial vehicles with government license plates and military off-road vehicles with red license plates from the Jinling military district. They formed a magnificent motorcade and sped over. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.